And greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, in here, out there, everywhere. Welcome to the Timeless Gamer Show, where our games and our bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain timeless. And the show is now live here in Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And for all of our archived videos of previous episodes, you can still go to our YouTube channel, The Timeless Gamer Show, give them a watch, or you can just go to our website by going at timelessgamers.com. And you can also listen to us by going to the major audio streaming platforms out there by searching in Timeless Gamers Show. Oh, and we would also like to take this opportunity to show our appreciation, our love to BitMap Books and Streamyard for allowing us to be one of their official affiliates. And previously, here in Timeless Gamer Show, um, what did we talk about?
Yeah, last time I couldn't make it, so you guys.
Yeah. What was it? It was me, Sir Viraj, and Sir Drew.
Yes,
We
game
mentioned about
collecting, game collecting.
game
Yes, why?
collecting.
Yes,
Goddamn,
why we collect games.
why we collect video games, and
Hmm
why we still keep on doing it up to this point. So, um, different kinds of perspective from a collector, from a casual gamer, and a reseller from Japan, Australia, and the UK. Different kinds of point of view and currency conversions as well in terms of the buy and sell of things in video game collecting. So if you are curious on what we were blabbering about, you know what to do. So for
This
this
is actually
episode, a very
oh,
special episode, in celebration of the up and coming new book from BitMap Books, they announced that they will be releasing a run and gun dedicated hardbound book that should be coming sometime this June or July. So we said, okay, we haven't really done a proper run and gun centric episodes. Why not do it now? So for this episode, we are going to be joined by Sir Viraj
hey, good to be here. Let's do this.
and, of course, Sir Banyaga native Sir Joel.
All right. Hello, 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 ladies, gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. I missed everybody. Sorry I couldn't make it last week. I would really would have loved to have been there, especially since the discussion was about game collecting, why we collected games, why we collect games to this very day, and why we will likely continue collecting games all the way into the future until we get thrown into the old folks' home. But yes, today it's going to be a little bit different because our partners at Bitmap Books are going to be releasing a brand new hardbound book that is absolutely guaranteed to become part of video game history. It's a book about run and gun games. And the very idea made us so excited that we decided to make that our topic for today. And we are going to be discussing our favorite run and gun games. And you in the audience are invited to participate in the chats as well, not just in the live, but also in the Facebook chats as well. Just join us in Facebook, even after the broadcast, because we look forward to every single one of yours opinions on what your favorite run and gun video games are, which ones are the best, which ones you can absolutely say are the horrendous worst. Throw in every single opinion that you can throw because we love to hear from you. And I'm absolutely sure everybody else in the audience will love to hear from you as well. Back to you, Joe.
And speaking of video game collecting, it was such a missed opportunity. Out of all of us here in the Timeless Gamers crew, Sir Joel is probably the most collector out of all of
Me? Nah, it would be Viraj right here.
would have
Viraj
been
would
nice
be the
to
one.
hear his opinion on,
With
on
you said a
things.
different story. We established last episode. I just buy things to sell them. That's a different thing.
So
Yeah?
says the guy who actually has a museum at home. Come on.
I'm not long enough to become the villain. That's what's happened. Yeah, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. But you need people like me. You need people like me to buy your
Well,
games
I
from.
I agree. I mean, in Philippine parlance, we always need a Bella Flores, like the villainess who everybody loves to hate, but is essential.
Even
I
even
don't,
Sergio
I
put
don't think
down there that he agrees with us that you
Mm.
are the collector.
I have a lot. I think there's always a bigger fish. There are collectors that even outstrip me that make me look like I'm a midget compared to them. And I think there are many different scales of collectors that you'll get. Different people like to
Mhm,
collect different formats. For example, I have a nice collection of every format that I have, but I
mhm.
don't go gaga over it like some of these other people. Some of these people are just,
Oh
oh
no,
goodness me.
dude! Here in the U.S., there was this one guy who actually achieved the Guinness Book of World Records ranking of the
Mhm.
number one video collector of all time. He's got an entire house full of nothing but video games, complete sets from almost every single platform there is. And kudos to him. I'd really love to
Mhm.
visit his house sometime in the future. Yeah, you never know. But then again, back to our current topic. We are going to be talking
Yes.
about run and gun games. Yes, and Joe, start us off.
So, guys, let's get this out of the way. We're not going to talk about Contra. We're not going to talk about
Oh
Metal
yeah.
Slug.
Why not?
Those games are
Why
given,
not?
okay? Those games
Yes.
are given already. Maybe
Mm-mm.
just a few mentions here and there, but we're not going to uh, we're not going to revolve the show just for those games. And Mega Man, sure, Mega Man is a completely genre in itself. All right, we've
Mhm.
already tackled Mega Man way back. But yes, so it's a toss up between Contra, Metal Slug, Mega Man. All right. So for this particular episode, we are going to mention a few more titles out there, some lesser known titles out there, but and in comparison to what Bitmap Books is trying to dish out this coming June or July. If you know Bitmap Books, they compile a lot of those pages of all sorts of video games. What we might be tackling, like, I don't know, 0.00000001%, because we don't have the
Mhm.
time to discuss all of that. So we'll just do what we each panel here in the Timeless Gamer Crew will be discussing at least two or three games that we are quite fond of in regarding with the run and gun games. Sir JDM, Miss I, and Sir Dan couldn't be here for this episode, unfortunately, but they've submitted their own anecdotes in regarding with the topic. So let's start off with Sir Joe. Sir Joe, what you got?
All right. Well, again, like to reiterate, like Joe says, we're here at Timeless Gamer, kind of pride ourselves in delving into the games that not too many people are very familiar with, or the games that not too many people have really tried out, despite the fact that there's a famous version of that genre readily available. RPGs, Final Fantasy, racing games, Gran Turismo. We always try to see what else there is out there because hey, other groups, other podcasts, other videos will always have the their time dedicated to those kinds of games, and we'll give it to them. In our case here in Timeless Gamers, we always try to check out what else there is because we always try to appreciate what other people have not tried yet and what other developers have
Mhm.
thrown their efforts, their hearts, their souls, their tears, their blood into, and just have not gone as appreciated as other games. So in my case, I would like to start off by a game that I played on the Famicom and a lot of people are familiar with, likely visually, and maybe it's hidden in the back of your head, something that you've played long ago and just kind of run through, completed, and completely forgot later on. It's a game called Russian Attack or Green Beret for the Japanese Famicom. It's called Russian Attack in the
Mhm.
arcades and in USANES. So if Joe can throw up a little bit video of it on screen, it's a run and gun, of course, because our topic is run and gun. But you play a Green Beret soldier infiltrating, what I presume is Mother Russia, and your mission is to try to JDM, one of our panelists in the chats, say you could still talk about RPGs in this episode. Rocket propelled grenades. Yes, that is very true, JDM. Very very true. You play
Mm,
a Green Beret commando, whatever you
Mm.
want to call him, with knee-high boots, running across Russia, stabbing Russian soldiers, running through rocket launching areas, and penetrating the depths of a Russian base, making sure that you achieve your objective of blowing the entire place up. And along the way, you stab bad guys. When you stab them, weapons pop out of their bodies and get thrown up into the air for you to pick up later on, either a bazooka, or in the arcade they replaced the bazooka. They replaced the flamethrower with a bazooka. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they thought flamethrowers were a little bit too violent, seeing soldiers being burned up by bazookas. Of course, the soldiers don't just run up at you to be stabbed willy nilly. Some soldiers are very, in keeping with the 80s aesthetic. They are very ninja esque, karate esque. They can run up at you and jump towards you and kick you in the face. It's a one hit kill game. If the enemy manages to land a hit on you, then you are dead. There's no hit points, there's no life bar, nothing. We in the 80s disdained those little namby-pamby mechanics that you youngsters have, that life bars, you take more than one hit to die. Now, here you get kicked in the face, you die a horrendous death, and you have to start at the very beginning of that stage. None of that
mm,
starting where you checkpoint at. None of that where you end up. Begin like nothing happened. No, you begin at the very beginning of the stage, and
Mm.
you have very limited lives. If I recall correctly, there's only about 3 to 5 lives from the beginning of the game. Very arcade-esque, actually. If it takes a lot of cues from the arcade game, and to be perfectly honest, it's a relatively faithful conversion from the arcade. If I were to compare it side by side, because it doesn't have as much, um it doesn't have this, not slow down. What's the correct term? The slowing down of the game speed as compared to my next game that I'm going to be
As no,
discussing.
no, so there's no lag.
Yeah, a little bit of lag, I guess, because like, you're right. The fact is, in the arcade games, usually in arcade games, go converted into home consoles, they kind of had to slow down the speed, because console gamers don't have the same adjusted reflexes that arcade gamers do. Arcade gamers know that their quarter has to last a long, long time, for them to maximize
mm.
the value for their quarters or their tokens. In home consoles, you have the leisure of being able to strategize as you go. So they kind of have to slow down the game a little bit for the home
Well,
console port.
I think
Hmm.
there's a flip side to that coin, my friend, which is when they
Hmm.
develop games, arcades, they deliberately make them harder because there's two customers for that arcade developer. One is the vendor
Hmm.
and one is the customer, and the vendor wants more coins out of that game. So some of these games were notoriously difficult for the sake of just making more money. So I think there's
Hmm.
that aspect. Whereas, yeah, you're right. The console game version would be a bit more forgiving, be a lot
Yes,
more
very true.
forgiving. Some
Very
games are
true.
just
Very true.
designed to be unforgiving.
Mm.
But yeah, carry
Yeah, yeah.
on,
I mean,
carry on.
it's true. It's true. The fact is, Viraj makes an excellent point on that, because of the fact that you have to make sure that the console players don't just decide, I don't like this game because it's way too hard. I have to return it. I have to return it to the store, and replace it with another game. So in this game, in Green Beret, or Russian Attack as it's known in the arcades, you do get to play a special ops guy, and you pick up various weapons. You destroy the enemy, you destroy mines on foot. You have to be careful where you step too, because mines pop up. I mean, they're pretty prominent, but you have to be careful because the enemies kind of try to lead you to step on them. And there are enemies aplenty left and right. They will run at you, jump at you. They will try to stop you from getting to your ultimate goal of blowing up the entire base. And finally, it's ultimately, as a run and gun, it is a very simple game because of the fact that there's only one thing to do: kill bad guys, destroy the base. Simple as that. I think you have how many stages? I don't even remember, but it is a simple enough and, sad to say, forgettable enough game that once you're done with it, you kind of file it away as, I'm finished
Yeah.
with this game. I'm done with it. I'm not gonna play through it anymore. I mean, sure, you can try to speed run it, as some people kind of tend to do. Um, yeah, there's also that. It shows how in the game, it's not just humans that run up at you. There's also dogs. They're the guard dogs, but it's really
Not for
simple to
animal
fend them off. You just lie down, you stab them. Like you stab their legs, and they just go ow, and they die. They're gone. That's it. That's the
I
game.
mean,
That's the home console
definitely,
version, anyway. Yes, Viraj, go ahead.
definitely not for animal lovers. I mean, it's kind of
Oh no,
cruel,
no,
really, but
definitely not. No, I mean, the animal lovers here are the Russian soldiers who train the dogs to kill you, and it's all you can do to, it's all you can do to just
reminds me,
lie
it's
down on
like
your belly and just stab them.
in
You
how
were
it
saying,
plays. I mean, obviously, this is Konami before Contra, isn't it? Creating
yes, if I remember
it is
correctly, yes.
yeah, it's partial. It's part run and gun, part stab and run. So you got a bit of
Mm,
both. It reminds me of
yes,
a game on the Mega Drive, Taito. Well, I say it's Mega Drive. It's another arcade game by Taito called Thunder Fox.
Thunder
Similar
Fox. Okay, yes, I do
running
remember
with
Thunder
I
Fox.
mean,
That's a good one, actually.
that's an interesting one. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's obviously like a 16-bit variant of this, but this is, for the time. It's very important we mention the time this game was developed. Was it not exactly mid 80s? Shall we say 86? When did this game
Yes.
come out? I don't know.
I
So,
I'd say about 86, 87. I'd say Cold War era. Like the Cold War was in full swing. The Russian scares were abounding,
it's,
and everybody was worried.
here it says the game came out in November 85, exactly the month and year I was born in the arcades.
Oh
And,
well, there you go.
in North America, it was 87, April 87, it was released on the NES. And in Europe, we got it in 89, 2 years late, goodness me. But yeah,
Hmm.
it made the NES port, when the NES was really at its peak, really, to be honest, as a home console for Nintendo in North America for sure. Yeah, I think it's like it's exactly how you say. It's a game that you can enjoy, but it's probably something that you'd forget after playing it. There you go. That's my thoughts on that. That's all I have to say on
Well, there you
that.
go. So yeah, that's my first game. It's a game called Russian Attack, or Green Beret, as it was known in the Philippines, and Japanese Famicom. Got to play it in. I think I got to play it when I got my first Famicom. It was one of those cartridges that nobody knew anything about. You just bought the cartridge when it became available in a shop called Cash and Carry, and you just ran through it, played it. Simple enough. Nothing really fancy. Nothing really special about it. But it was a fun little experience while it was there, while you got to play it, and once you
Right,
were
you said
done with it,
Famicom. Did you say
sorry.
Famicom?
Yes,
Did you say
Famicom.
Famicom? Funny, 'cause I'm
Yes.
looking at the Wikipedia page here, and it says
Mm,
it had a NES release in '87, and it has
mhm.
a Famicom Disk System release in
Yes,
Japan at least.
actually, originally a lot of games first showed up in the Famicom disc, and
Uh,
they had Famicom cartridge
yeah.
versions that are kind of pared down. They didn't have as
Oh,
many,
it did actually have a Famicom release. It's just that it just says on Wikipedia Famicom Disk System, so I'm guessing.
Yes, It doesn't. The Famicom cartridge version doesn't have as many bells and whistles. I guess they kind of pared down the
Right.
sound.
Yeah,
But then
sound
again, they
effects.
keep the action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
there. So that is my first game for this series. I'll pass it off to the next. I'll pass it off to the next person. I'll talk about my next game a little later on, Joe.
About this game, I'm
Mm,
like, which I'm guessing this is a military base in
yes.
Russia,
Yes.
maybe Siberia.
Hmm.
Why are
We
all
all
of the
know it's
people just keep running at you? They're not shooting at you.
No, they do
Well,
actually. They do. It,
um,
it's very,
I
it's
mean,
very, it's
well, to
very.
be fair, you're not really shooting at them either.
Yeah, like maybe they're just trying
So,
to do a citizen's
fair
arrest.
to be fair. I mean, with all of those cannons and ammunitions lying around, why are not those people are not really shooting at you? I mean, I can see some.
Mm.
Are those landmines over there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
That are
they're landmines.
those are landmines, right? Okay.
Yes. It's
All
just that.
right.
I mean, it's very simple. Like I said, you don't have you don't have advanced AI like you whippersnappers have nowadays. You don't have these guys that can kind of, what's the right word for it? Can duck behind cover. They It's a 2D field, and there's nowhere for you to go. You can't go sideways and
I mean,
hide.
if there's any, I mean, it can. It looks
Mm,
easy just
mhm.
watching the footage right now.
Yes. Mhm.
Only because they're not really shooting at you, so it's not like those kind of bullet hell kind of games. Like you're trying
Mhm.
to dodge all of those incoming bullets,
Mhm.
right?
No,
Because
no.
the enemies are just running at you. I mean, most of the time, right now, some people are shooting at you,
Mhm.
but most of the time they're just running at you, trying to kick
Yes.
you, punch you, sure,
It's a
and
numbers
then
game. It's a numbers game. They
yeah,
try to overwhelm you by their sheer numbers, and because, like I said, it's a one-hit kill. Anytime any soldier touches you at any part of your body, whether it's a flying kick to your face, whether it's a sudden touch to your ankle from behind because you just were stabbing somebody in the front, it's a death. And you have to
who made
begin at the
this?
beginning of the stage.
Who-
Konami, if I remember correctly.
Oh,
Yes.
Konami, of course.
Yes. So
Konami.
yes,
This is
Russian attacker
For
Green
you.
Beret.
Konami game,
Mhm.
I can see some
Okay.
resemblance to M Bison,
A little bit,
especially
yes.
that guy,
You were about
the red guy doing a flying kick, kind of looks like M Bison doing a horse kick kind of
a
thing.
little bit, yeah. You were saying Viraj.
Yeah, for all those Ukrainians listening, this is your game, isn't it? You can take
Oh
some
yeah,
notes.
that is true. That is true. Current day politics, yes, Ukrainians. But yeah, Green
Yeah,
Beret,
all right.
Russian attack.
Cool.
That's about as much as I can say about it. It's gotten a nice variety of backgrounds, but eventually the game does get a little bit repetitive and monotonous because of the fact that it's palette swaps. The enemies are palette swaps. They just either run up at you, kick you, or like try to shoot you with their handguns, and it's just a matter of avoiding.
I don't remember getting I don't remember playing this game on my 999999999 in one.
No, weirdly
Maybe it
enough,
got mixed up with all of those numbers.
it could be. Weirdly enough, I'm not quite sure it got all that popular, but I do remember it fondly because, well, it was very thematic of the 80s. Again, the Russian scare. You knew that the big bad red was somewhere just beyond the horizon, and kids' power fantasies was invading an entire Russian base, just massacring everybody and blowing the entire place up for the safety of
Because that was
America.
the US propaganda back then.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And what is you have to admit, uh, patriotism is somehow is still something that you need in terms of like keeping the morale up. And how to do that? Propaganda. And why should you restrict yourself from propaganda if the enemy is doing it too, right?
Yes,
That's correct.
true.
Hmm.
In fact, this continued. I mean, this theme of blowing up Russians continued even in my after the Cold War.
Hmm.
A favorite of mine. It's nothing to do with running. It's called Command and Conquer Red Alert. Same sort
Oh,
of
there you go.
thing.
That's precisely it too.
Oh,
Yeah.
hang on. We're sorry. It's Soviet Union. Okay, Soviet Russia. Okay, I'm sorry.
Soviet in
Soviet
Russia,
Russia.
Soviet becomes you. Okay, whatever. There you go. All right. So
Uh,
that is my first game. I'll talk about my second game later on. I'll give the floor to the next person then.
Okay, Sir
uh,
Viraj, you up?
no, give it to the video guys. I'll talk later about my views.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's run the video of
Let's
of
run the
somebody
video.
who, yeah, let's run the video of somebody who couldn't make it today. Sad to say, but has very strong opinions of run and gun games as well. Mhm.
All right, let's go with Sir Dan first. Sir Dan, what you
Sounds good.
want?
Yeah.
What you got, Sir Dan?
What you got?
Hello, Timeless Gamer Crew. We're talking run and guns. We'll get to my very first choice, which is Contra Hard Corps for the Sega Mega Drive. It's a 1994 game, part of the infamous Contra series, of course, that everybody knows and loves. Well, most people. If you like run and guns, chances are you like some Contra games. And this, for me, is one of the best. it's my personal favourite. Having said that, I've not had that much experience with some of the later entries. I've heard Contra 4 is fantastic. I need to get myself playing that big time. So that's all on me really. But definitely the early games and the games of that era. This is my favourite. It's one of my favourite games of all time, to be honest. I think it's just got a perfect level of punch, of excitement, of thought, of memorization and Twitch play. It's just a bit of a it is a masterpiece. It's a fantastic masterpiece. What makes it stand out so much as a run and gun is that it's got 4 multiple playstyles for starters. You've got 4 different characters. Each different character, when you pick up a power up, that gives them a different type of power up to the other character. So there's a lot of replayability on that alone. Okay, but as well as that, you've got branching paths. Now, I can't really remember many games, if any, before this came out that had branching paths at all in run and gun formula. The run and gun genre is generally A to B all the way through. This, you get to make different choices, and each different choices affects which stages you play. So it's honestly, I absolutely love how they've done this, and this is my favorite way of doing arcade style games, because I don't like it when they drag arcade style games out. When you play an arcade style game, you want to be playing somewhere between 20 to 60 minutes to finish it, maximum. And Contra Hard Corps, it takes that approach where you're going to finish it in around probably about 30 minutes. Off the top of my head, don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. I'm just estimating there. I should have timed it really before I made this video. But when you go through when you have all these different options, you can pick different outcomes and different paths, and it just makes for a much more replayable, again, exciting journey. You know what I mean? And it's a very challenging game. I wouldn't say a lot of people say it's too hard. I don't think it's too hard at all. I think it's perfectly got its difficulty perfectly down. Although we'll come back to that in a minute. But between the nice challenge and between the different paths and between the different multiple play styles, it's just incredible. It's just every time you replay it, it's fresh. You know what I mean? It feels fresh and fantastic and action packed and superb. And with each of these different paths that you get different endings as well. So you've got 6 different endings to say. You've even got one of them 6 is a secret ending that you have to find yourself by exploring one of the stages. So that gives it an entirely different dynamic to just a straightforward A to B run and gun. So you're getting such a rich, deep game. A lot of people don't think arcade games are deep, but they are. I mean, if you unless you're save stating these games, you're wasting these games. If you're touring them with rewinds and save states, you aren't getting the full appreciation and the full satisfaction of discovering and beating these challenges for yourself. Because it took me quite a long time. I can't remember exactly, but I remember it taking me at least a few weeks to beat Hard Corps once, and then I'd got like 5 other endings to discover, each with their own different separate paths getting there. So it's a very, very rich, deep, exciting, amazing game, and there's a boss rush element to it. I wouldn't call it a boss rush game because there's a lot of popcorn enemies that you deal with in the meantime, but there's a lot of bosses you take on. Any game developer now, right? Any modern developer should study this game without a structure, both a game and boss rushes, because the boss patterns in this are brilliant. Some are dynamic to the point where they don't actually repeat the same patterns. That they do have set patterns, but how they choose to throw these patterns at you is very dynamic. So again, that adds to the replayability. And I've not even talked about like the look of the enemies, the individuality of the stage layouts. Every single step you take is a different, fresh step. It's a work of genius. It really is. Back to the difficulty. There is only one difficulty. That would technically be one of my complaints about it, but there's two different versions of the games. There's a Japanese version and the Western version. And the Western version doesn't have a health meter. When the Japanese version, it does. So essentially, you do get a normal difficulty, which is the Japanese version, and a hard difficulty, which is the Western version. That's the way I always played it. I always play it. The Japanese version allowed me to get into it and get a feel for it, and that's what I put on when I want a casual blast on it. Just when I just want to blast through it, and I'm not pushing myself to do a 1 credit clear challenge or I wouldn't say no death run because I've only ever no death run the Japanese version once, but I normally finish it with about 2 or 3 lives left. But the Western version is a totally different challenge. I've not 1CC'd that yet, and that is a very nice meaty challenge as well. So between all those elements, between your branching paths, your play styles, your different endings, your difficulties, you've got one heck of a game here. You know what I mean? And everything's crafted to a T. Every little thing is crafted to a fine T. It's brilliant. So that's my first choice. Contra Hard Corps, Sega Mega Drive. Get it played and keep it timeless.
Gotta admit, Dan's always got one of the most energetic takes here in Timeless Gamer Show. We absolutely love the way that he presents things. Sorry, what was that?
Contra Hardcore. All right. I have a love and hate relationship with this game. All right. For all those people who played the first Contra and Super C on the NES Famicom, it felt like those two games were, in terms of speed of the gameplay, they're both relatively the same. Even with the ammunition, just a few tweaks here and there, but because of the 8-bit style, Super C it just has a little bit more flair and color, but they still felt kind of in the same universe. Going to hardcore. This was me back in the early 90s, and I'm like, I'm not even sure if I'm playing Contra. Is it really Contra? And why do I have a werewolf as a playable character all of a sudden? What happened to those two guys? What happened to Arnold and
Arnie and Sly? Yeah.
What happened to Arnie and Sly? And I'm like, and this game at the time, the blast processing was just so blast in this game. It's just way too fast. I mean, even for me, and like, because even now I can still finish the first Contra and the second Contra, no problems at all. Even if I'm not even using the Konami code. Here, just the first stage, it's just way too much for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old, or I'm just stubborn, or
No. It's really hard, honestly. Yeah. No, the first moment that I encountered Contra on the Genesis, this one, I said, "Holy cow! They've become unforgiving." The way that they actually probably meant the original Contra to be on Famicom or NES, without the 30 lives, thing. This looks like how it was supposed to be, and I can't handle this. Honestly, I could not. What was your opinion on that, Viraj?
What's all this business about? Yeah, it was an 80s one death kill. You can't handle this. It's a 1990s game, man.
I know this. I guess let's put it this way: something like Russian Attack at least had the advantage of the enemy being as slow as molasses before they kicked you in their face. Sorry, what was that?
Contra Hardcore is fast, and there's a lot of assets, a lot of enemies. It's all coming at you. You got to be ready, man. You got to be up playing that game. And if you look at Dan, man, that man is on some sort of high drug. I reckon he's on cocaine. Doing this, man. And he's right, because there was it was called Pro Protector in the Europe.
Pro Protector, yes.
Dan forgot to mention, because of censorship laws. They couldn't have humans being killed, or humans killing humans, or something stupid like that. So they had robots killing aliens or something, or whatever it was. So they've changed a few of the assets. but it's
Mm.
still
Which
got
is weird, Trevor Hatch. Out of all of the games that came out during those times, Robert Contra got the shaft
yeah.
for
I
people
mean,
killing people. I mean, there are other games that people kill people.
Pro Protector, look, it's there, isn't it? I mean, it's just the assets have been changed. Otherwise, the same characters. It's just a different asset, but they still play the same. You still got one death kills. And what Dan meant with life meter, because I don't think he explained it correctly. You have basically with the Japanese version of Contra Hardcore, you have 3 hits and you die. Okay, with the Western release, you 1 hit and you're dead.
Yeah.
I'd have to disagree with Dan on his comment about I wish it had more difficult, like a variety of difficulty settings. I think that Contra Hardcore is what it is, and you should play it because that's what a Mega Driver does. You play it for what it is, and you enjoy it. He makes a very good point about save states. You don't want to tour the game. And the only time I ever use save states is if I'm at the start of a level, not during a level, at the start of a level. But at the same time, he's absolutely spot on. This is a game that you should experience. You will die a lot. You will die a lot. The whole point is you're supposed to die and learn from your mistake, and that's the grind of this game.
Well, that's the thing. We tried to avoid the elephant in the room, Contra, but somehow we cannot avoid discussing it because it is.
This particular game isn't talked about. People talk about the Super Nintendo on Alien Wars as being the one.
That's true. Yeah.
But Dan is absolutely spot on by saying this is. I mean, if you want a challenge with Contra, this is the one. Yeah, the SNES one had that goofy mode down level and all that stuff. No. You play Contra, you play hardcore. That's more in true with like the genetics of the series and how it should have gone.
And if I can entice Jaw to read the backstories, the lore, surprisingly enough, Contra has some pretty interesting lore because of the fact that I played Shattered Soldier on the PS2, and you realize that spoilers, but then again, for gamers who are already familiar with the Contra game series, you would already know the story. One of the soldiers, I think Lance Bean, was turned out to be a traitor or a bad guy, and eventually one of the endings, it's not canonical. It's like one of those things, like one of those side adventures that if you decide to go down that route, you will end towards it. It'll be the I forgot the Arnie versions, the Arnie guy's name in the game. You have to fight against your former partner, so it's very Double Dragon-esque, where it's the guy that you played through the entire game with. At the very end, you have to fight against. So the lore is there. If you're interested in story, why all the weirdness is happening, it is there. But
How very telenovela.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
How very telenovela of
PlayStation.
Sorry, what was that?
We mentioned the PlayStation contract. We're
Yes.
mentioning the PlayStation game, which is Legacy War.
Yeah, I think we can mention
That's
PlayStation.
I didn't like the PlayStation games. I think they went in a weird direction when they brought it to 3D. I didn't think Apple's Interactive did a good job with those two PlayStation 1 games. You know what? In all fairness, they're worth playing, but the genetics of Contra are there, and they finally returned to that genetics with Contra 4 on the Nintendo DS and Android.
Yeah.
Nintendo DS is how you want to.
Contra is still going all the way to today. I think they just came out with a new game on mobile.
Yeah,
Contra
Operation Garuga.
something I forgot. There you go. Operate. There it is. Yeah. I mean,
Galuga.
Galuga. Yeah. I mean, no matter what you say. Yeah. Go ahead, Viraj.
So let me just be very clear. So Konami don't make Contra anymore; they just publish it as an IP. I don't think they've built a Contra in-house game since the 16-bit era, because obviously Apple's Interactive did ones on the PlayStation, and there were other ones. I can't remember who the developers were, but I know Way Forward did Contra 4, and they did an amazing job on it. And anything Way Forward touches, I mentioned it on this podcast before, is great. And Way Forward have also done Operation Galuga on Nintendo Switch and the modern platforms, and I'm looking forward to that. I've not played it yet, but if they did such a bang up job with Contra 4, I think they'll do a good job with this one. So yeah, I think the Contra series has its ups, but when they're downs, they're not. I mean, there's no bad Contra game. Yeah, they're just not as good as the other ones. So you can win with all the Contra games.
A lot of games actually suffer from comparison. Not so much the fact that they're bad, but when they're compared to the very best of the series, you kind of say this isn't as good, and it taints your perception that this is a bad game. Not necessarily. It just might have gone in a different direction. It might have done something a little bit differently. It's not necessarily bad, but it might still be worth playing. But then again, I was about to interject earlier that for all you PC and console gamers with your eternal war about which is better, you have to remember that your asses all got wiped by mobile. According to all revenue reports, mobile gaming is still top of the heap. So, go ahead. You were about to say something, Joe.
And I mean, in regarding what Sir Verge mentioned about
Hmm.
a bad Contra game,
Hmm.
there were some Contra games that jumped to the
Hmm.
3D,
Hmm.
to the 3D platform eventually with PS1 and PS2
Hmm.
specifically. And I'm like, it's not necessarily those games are bad. It's just
Hmm.
that
They're different.
it's a different take
Mhm.
because they're
So
trying to
so let's
jump.
let's name them. Let's
They're,
name
they're
them.
just
Okay. So
trying to go to the 3D
okay. So
3D environment thing.
Sorry, Viraj, you
yeah.
were
So
saying?
let's name these games that we're talking about. So we're talking Contra Legacy War, the
Mm.
Contra Adventure, and
Mm.
Contra Shattered Soldier. And Contra Shattered Soldier
Shattered
was the
Soldier,
PS1.
Neo Contra, I think if I remember correctly, Neo
Yeah,
Contra also on the
Neo
PlayStation
Contra
2.
was also on
Yeah.
the PlayStation 2 as well. So you have four that were two on the PS1, two on the PS2, and then eventually Nintendo DS came out with
Hmm.
Contra 4 and back to its roots,
Yes.
which is, in my opinion, the better decision that they made for the game because it works better in a 2D environment. And the
Mm.
same could be said with so many other games that work better in 2D than 3D. Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm looking at you. Castlevania, I'm
Mm.
looking at you. So there's no shame in going back to 2D. Why spend
Mm.
so much money developing a 3D game when actually the format works better in a 2D environment? There's no
Very
shame
true.
in that.
Very true. Very true. In the end of it, you have to go with where the gameplay is. And there were experimentations back in the day with PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, because everybody was so excited about 3D graphics and everybody wanted to check it out. And of course, developers wanted to make money from what people wanted to check out. So they produced that. And I guess right now they've done it, they've checked it out. They say, all right, it kind of works, but not really. People still keep going back to the 2D versions. Let's do 2D. And now they've come back to what we have right now on the Nintendo Switch, Operation Galuga, if I remember correctly from what Viraj says. And yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully it makes money and we can continue the IP. You're about to say, Viraj.
I just want to say very quickly, just on Contra, because it's not registered, and I'm surprised that it's not on Wikipedia. Nobody's done it. Maybe there's something I missed, or maybe they're not counting it as canon. But
Mhm.
there was a Contra game on the Game Boy Advance. Okay, and it's called Contra Alien Wars EX. Okay, and it's not been listed there on the timeline. Now that game, for any of those wondering, is it good? Is it bad? Well, it's a mismatch. So what they did was with Contra Alien Wars EX is they basically the Super Nintendo Contra game, but they took out those Mode 7 levels, okay, the top-down levels, and they've replaced them with the Sega Mega Drive Contra hardcore levels. So you have two Contra hardcore levels mixed with Alien Wars. So you have those two games fused together in this thing. I think there's like maybe an extra level in this game, but I could be lying, so just check that out for yourselves. But the biggest deal breaker for this particular game was in Contra, you could always have two weapons, couldn't you? You could select a weapon, you have another one to choose from. So you'd have like that kind of gun, and you could go from that kind of gun. Like you only got one gun that you can choose on the GBA one, which is a kind of a missed opportunity there. But I suppose it makes the game much more simplistic and fun to play. It's not a bad game by any means. It's just it's just something that you play as an oddity or a curiosity. But it's become very collectible on the Advance because of it says Contra. It's one of those games.
Heck,
So
there's even a Contra game. There's even a Contra game on the PlayStation 4, if I remember correctly, Contra Rogue Core, and I never got to play that one. But maybe sometime in the future. What do you say, Joe? I mean, you've got your popcorn.
No, let's go with her barrage.
Yeah, let's hear Virage's run and gun game. I'm curious.
Oh gosh, where do I begin? So I don't know I can't remember. I have an idea what Sedan said. So I'm gonna take it aside, and I'll talk about. And there's so many I can pick and choose. I'll just take one out of the hat that I have here that I've got at the back of my mind. Let's support Sedan with a Sega one. Alien 3 on the Mega Drive.
Alien 3.
Yeah, Alien 3. Okay, let's bring a popular IP back. So we got Alien 3. Now. There have been a number of Alien video games based on the Alien universe, and we can talk about Alien 3. Alien in all different variants. And there were a number of Alien 3 video games at the time, and they were rather different from each other. The SNES version of Alien 3 was different to the Mega Drive one. So back in those days, obviously, now these days, you have a console war. It's basically the same game, but on PlayStation or Xbox, and there'll be a Switch version. But Alien 3 was different when it came out on the Mega Drive first. I think it was made by, was it Probe Software or Acclaim published it? Well, it was branch of Acclaim or whatever. Now, first of all, it has an outstanding soundtrack by Matt Furniss. Okay, you play as Ripley, and obviously it takes a bit of creative license because it doesn't follow the story of the Alien movies. Now, this is a different kind of run and gun in the sense that it has an exploratory element to it, but you are shooting aliens and you have to rescue hostages in each stage. Now, with this game, it is. I'm not going to lie, it's difficult. Okay, you won't die. You'll probably run out of time. That's most likely going to be the case. So you've got a timer up there. So you've got 2 minutes 50 seconds to rescue all the hostages and get to the exit. That's basically it. So it's not a case of killing all the aliens there. You've got to save the hostages and get to the next level. That's it. It's as fundamental, at least simple as that. Now, you don't have a map. Okay, so you're going to have to, it's trial and error, basically. You've got to try and get through the level, navigate through it, and find out where the hostages are. Now, if you don't do that, you fail the level. It's as simple as that. And obviously you can die. You have an arsenal of weapons, so you've got your pulse rifle. That makes this a similar sound like the one in the movie Aliens. You've got a flamethrower. You've got a rocket propelled grenade. You have grenades that you can throw as well. I think there must be another weapon I missed out there. So you have that, and you also have a guardian boss at the end of the third stage of a level that you have to take down. And you traverse through each stage bit by bit, and eventually you get to the queen, the last level, and queen, you fight the queen, and then it's the end of the game. Simple as that. Now, this game is famous for being notoriously difficult for what it is. Whereas the Super Nintendo equivalent version of this, you've got a variety of missions you can do. It's not just about saving hostages. The Super Nintendo one, you have other things to do, like destroy an alien nest and things like that. So you have a lot more variety with the Super Nintendo one. And the Super Nintendo one typically gets more favorable reviews. But I think in terms of the simplicity and the action and the speed at this one, you've got to be quick on this one. There's just a lot more fun playing it. And that's Alien 3. There was a one on the Game Boy, which is like more of a top-down sort of shooter level. So that's actually different to this as well. This did have a Master System release, which is the 8-bit version of this, which in my opinion does play a little bit better. It's easier to control the Master System, strangely enough. So you have that, and you've got the NES version as well, which is another sort of scaled-down port of this same sort of format of a game, but still a different game in terms of level layout. And there you have it, Alien 3, that's the game that I'd choose as a run and gun game on the Mega Drive. That is obscure, not Contra, but one that you wouldn't have expected me to talk about. Or, you'd be like, oh, this is an interesting game. Give it a go. Give it a go. If you want to challenge, for those of you listening in the section here, you want to challenge and you love Alien, because I love the Alien films. I'm looking forward to the new Alien Romulus at the end of the year. And I suppose that's why this came up in my head straight away when I pulled it out, because of Alien Romulus. Alien 3. Alien 3. There we go. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
So
you want to comment?
in regarding with this game, Sir Viraj, so Alien 3 meaning, so the game is like some sort of a reimagining of the Alien 3 movie?
Yes. It's using creative license. And obviously, we know Ripley didn't have a gun. And they did talk about, the producers did talk about, like, and they talked to the people in the movie studio, Fox, saying, look, the game will be totally boring if she doesn't have a gun. Yeah, we have to put it in there. And they agreed. The producers, the people in the studio agreed, we should use a bit of license, and that's it. And thank God they did, because how can you, now you've got Alien Isolation, haven't you? She doesn't have a gun, and that actually works. But it would take copious amount of hours to program a game like that. Obviously, in this era, we're talking, you had to have this sort of game that in that era, because that was the limitations they had, shall we say? But it works great in my opinion. But yeah,
so for those people who are not really, it's either they're not familiar with the movie franchise or at least played the games.
Yeah.
They would think this is just a guy, but if you know the movie, it's Ripley just bald.
Yeah, she got paid like $10 million just to shave her head for the film. She got paid more just to shave her head in the third film than she did for the entire fee of the second film. But yeah, she shaved her head. And obviously it's based on the film. If you haven't seen any films, what are you doing? Go on.
Right. So are you? How about the other characters? Where's Newt, Hicks, Bishop?
They're not in there. Listen, it's not. Let's not draw this thing out to be more than what it is. Yeah, it's a game where you play as Ripley. You go through level by level.
So it's just Ripley all throughout.
You go through. And when you say where's Newt and when's Hicks, I can't ask that question because for those people who haven't seen the film, I'm spoiling it. You know what happened in the film today.
Oh, come on. The statute of limitations for spoilers is way
All right.
past.
Question, you know what's happened. They're fucking dead.
I do
Trust me.
know, and it still sucks.
It still sucks. But look, look. I don't want to talk too much about the film. Let's talk about the game. Yeah, the game is better than. You could argue the game is better than the film in that regard. That it's got a lot more fun, a lot more action. This is what you wanted. Commentator saying this is popular in the computer shop to go when I was a kid. There we go. So that's it. For the love of everything that is good, please don't play Alien 3 on the NES. Just no. So I can understand why JD doesn't like it because it still uses the same genetics this game does, but it uses darker colors, so you can't see anything with the NES version. So he's got a point there. Who's the main character? I thought we were looking at John McClane. Well,
no, she's right. Alien 3 is basically Die Hard in space.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. In essence, it is because you run, you hide, you kind of make sure that you try to save the hostages.
I mean, the challenge of this game is that aliens are actually faster than they look. They really do come out of nowhere sometimes. They can get you. So I will say that these aliens, they're quite sneaky. And you literally have to push quickly. So you have to have quick responses when playing this game.
But it has the basic elements.
Yeah.
It has the basic alien elements like the radar, the pulse rifle. It kind of has a connection tied to the Alien 3 film, which honestly, any alien film after Aliens, Alien 2.
I mean, what's the setting here? I mean, are they still in the ship?
I think they're in the prison colony, right?
The ship. They're on the planet, the prison planet, Fury 161, and that's where they're at. And you go through the stages of the planet, and you rescue all the hostages to the prisoners. That's basically it. I mean, why do you need to have such a story? It's not an RPG, mate. It's just a run and gun. It doesn't need that much thought.
Because we're story-based kind of guys, Viraj.
Story-based kind of guys.
You're talking to me.
There should be some method to the madness.
Like, even in my racing games, I like having a story to go with my racing games. So,
I don't know. Maybe the aliens are good and you're just trying to exterminate because you're a bastard.
Think about it. Maybe the aliens are actually, it's their planet, it's their world. Like, they're happily living there and everything. And these people just come. Think of it in the Avatar kind of thing. Pandora. These alien invaders come and try to exterminate you, and you're just living your life trying to defend your world.
Yeah, you're the one shooting at us. What the hell?
Exactly.
We're just here innocently eating faces.
Yeah,
So, this is like, for me, in my opinion, the second or third best Alien game in a 2D setting. I have to say 2D setting because my favorite is Alien Infestation on the DS, which is, you could argue that's a run and gun too, but it's a Metroidvania style, and I count that as a Metroidvania game. And that was also developed by Way Forward, a company I mentioned earlier, which is Gold, and they worked with Sega to make it. The second one, that's the level guardian that you're shooting here in the video here. That's the boss. Second Alien game is Alien vs Predator in the arcade by Capcom. I don't know if you've played that. No. It's actually a really good Alien game. It's a beat 'em up, and this is obviously my third favorite Alien game of all time. But obviously, I think for the era, this is the better one. Obviously, before they made the Capcom arcade game. So that's just my thoughts on that. So there you go.
Okay. Well, it seems to be something that I might want to pick up and play. But as I've noticed with run and guns, it's something like you run through it once and you kind of put it away and say, all right, I'm good with this. Is this one of those things that you want to pick up and play over and over again now?
I think a lot of you will struggle with this one because it's not a case of just shooting people and getting through the level. Like I said, you have to save all the hostages. So as you can see, underneath the timer, it says 8. There's a number there. That's 8 hostages.
How many that you left that you have to rescue? Okay.
Yeah, and you have a scanner there which tells you roughly where they are on the map. You see that little red dot. That's a hostage you save. Obviously, the blue little dots you'll see are aliens on there. Obviously, that scanner can run out of battery, so you're left blind. And there's no map. You have to memorize the level. You have to memorize the level and think, okay, where do I go next? And you also got that timer ticking down. When it runs up, that's it. It's that you lose a life. Or have to restart the level again. And that's basically it. So there you go. Another thing I think I mentioned at the start of talking about this is this. I know we can't play the music here. The music in this game by Matt Furniss, who is a renowned Genesis composer for the Mega Drive. And one of the criticisms Mega Drive hardware gets is people in the West didn't have to compose music for the system. It was always the Japanese composers that did the best music. Matt Furness is an exception to this rule, and he made an outstanding soundtrack to this game. And it's the music suits the game. Like, it's got a proper pumping soundtrack that you can sort of dance and move to while you're shooting, and you really do get immersed in the gameplay. And the music is half, well, I shouldn't say half, but it's a large part of what makes this game great as well, because you really do want to get into the gaming with that jam, and that's one thing I like about Alien 3.
This game is so Metroid.
Seriously. Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true.
I can understand why Sir Birch likes it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Metroidvania style, but it's not quite, because you haven't got a map, and it's the levels aren't that big, but you get to the stage and that's it. And you've got 4 hostages left. You've got 2 minutes 20 seconds to go. It's intense. You're like, oh god, where are the other ones? And that's the buzz of the game. It's like the adrenaline rush. You go, oh, I've got to get their time. You will get anxiety playing this game. If you're prone to anxiety attacks, maybe this isn't for you. But yeah, very 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 a pressure cooker of a game, I'll say.
And getting back to what Viraj's earlier comment about the music suiting the game, I completely agree with that. It's an underappreciated part of the game experience, and sad to say we really can't do an episode of music and sound effects and everything, because we will get copyright struck to eternity. But yeah, the fact is, I can honestly say that without certain musical cues, without certain sound effects, like one of my favorite games, Katamari Damacy for the PS2, which keeps getting remade, without the music there, the J-pop music rolling along with your rolling up everything in the universe, even Godzilla to a giant ball, it wouldn't be the same experience. And I imagine it's going to be the same here with Aliens 3, that if you don't have... Sorry, you were saying?
But as you saw in the clip before, she got last hostage. It opens the door to leave the level.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
the strategy
Okay.
as well as getting the running done. So great game. But shall we move on to the next game? On whoever's
Yeah. Well, let's do that one. But before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge the people in the chats first. We have Mr. Marlon Hurtado Eliscupides, who actually put out a couple of really good choices in terms of his games, and I think it's going to be a few of those games are going to be discussed later on in this episode. We also want to say hi to Jom Ente and Jo Martulud, Jo Marot, Paige, and of course one of our panelists, Miss Anson Porter, who sadly could not be here but will still make an appearance, and of course JDM. What can I say? JDM, one of the pillars of the Timeless Gamer Show, in the chats, manning the chats, and very much appreciated. So thank you very much, everybody. Glad to have you here. The discussion is lively and hopping in the chats. Join in, because the party is just getting started. All right, let's move on to the next game.
Cooking.
Okay, that's a quick commercial break.
The quick commercial break, or one of the videos from the people who couldn't make it to today's show. All right. Oops.
So before we do the we'll just do a quick ad break, and then we'll proceed with the next presenter.
Absolutely.
All right.
Sounds good.
Do you like playing video games? Do you like reading about history? Do you like learning about video game history? Then you should give yourself the gift of owning some video game history books from BitMap. Since 2014, BitMap Books have published numerous colorful and well-detailed hardbound books about video games, ranging from the different video game consoles of old and the various video game genres that will surely pique the interest of its core fanbase. BitMap's team of global video game journalists, players, and illustrators have produced numerous award-winning titles that celebrate the software, hardware, and developers that laid down the foundations for the billion-dollar video game industry we all know and love today. International shipping is also available with careful and considerate packaging from BitMap Books. If you don't want to take my word for it, then you can believe the people, almost 10,000 satisfied customers who submitted their glowing written reviews and video reviews after receiving their books from BitMap. By ordering your first BitMap book using our link, you will also be supporting the Timeless Gamers Show in spreading our love of video games and their rich history.
Hello, timeless gamers. Juan DeMarcos here of 123 Go, and I will be talking about the run and gun games that I have played through the years. So first, Mercs. Okay, so Mercs is a top-down shooter game that is a sequel to Commando from the arcade in 1989. This top-down run and gun games looks like map or shoot 'em up, but the characters are human. So I discovered this game back in the PlayStation 1 era via the Capcom generations, which also included Commando, which is the original game in the series. And if you're a fan of Contra or other run and gun games, you're really gonna find this game amazing, especially with co-op mode. You can play for with a friend if you have a friend with you, and there's a variety of gameplay that you can do in the game. You can ride like a Hummer or a Humvee, similar to Jackal, which will be included in Miss Ensign Porter's video. And I recently found out, as per Sir Dan, that there's a port, Sega Genesis port for this game. And so thank you so much, Danger Dan, for recommending that game for me. I have played the Sega Mega Drive port of the arcade game, and it really brought out more colors, and it had the arcade mode. It also had a regional mode that it's like, for modern gamers, it's like a DLC or a different story or a continuation of the original arcade game, which you could enjoy with your friends. So for me, Commando and Merc really inspired other game developers to get into the run and gun genre. So you have Contra 2, which followed suit with the top-down perspective. So I really think that if you're a fan of shoot 'em up, you really going to find this game interesting. It plays like a shmup, but like I've said earlier, you play with characters. Okay, so for the other run and gun game that I played, this one is modern. It's called Cuphead. It's a modern run and gun game, just like Contra, but with a classic touch. Classic because, as in, it looks like Felix the Cat or Betty Boop or Steamboat Willie classic. You know that artwork, those classic artworks that we used to love back when we were a child. It's here in Cuphead. So, speaking of classics, the story is inspired by the typical Twilight Zone premise of dealing with the devil. So, you have this Cuphead and his brother, I forgot his name. They were two good kids who started getting into gambling. They sold all of their money to the devil. They lose all of their money when Cuphead threw a snake eyes. So rolling a snake eyes in gambling is equivalent to rolling a 2 with 2 dice. So Cuphead and his brother lost all their money. So they are playing with death, as in DEATH, death. And now they owe their souls to the devil. However, there's one caveat. If they could get the souls of the debtors, then maybe he could spare their life. So when you play the game, it has a very fun tutorial level that teaches you how the game works or how the game mechanics are played. And you all throughout the game, you see awesome visuals, memorable bosses that look like Felix the cat, or Betty Boop with the airplane body. And you also have these sunflowers that throw seeds, or onion. Was it an onion? It's really hard to beat this game firsthand if you're playing blind. So I really recommend that you um, practice practice how to learn how to use the special moves, use to learn the dash, and you can also double jump to get some items or obstacles, get over obstacles, I mean. And power-ups, of course. Like Contra, you have power-ups like the spread gun. You also have this like Hadouken move that you can do, like a vacuum wave thing, but only with your um, finger gun. And my only complaint is the levels are so hard. It's like Dark Souls of the run and gun games. But saying that, it didn't really affect the popularity of the game. In fact, there are many streamers or pro players out there who are playing Cuphead as their stress reliever and playing the game casually, like they do it effortless. So if you want to play this game, you could get it on Steam, you can get it on most consoles now. I played the PC version, so you might want to check that out if you could run those games. And I really love the visuals. I don't think it will take much of risk of your machine's resources. So go out and play a random run and gun game. Start with Cuphead, start with Mercs, whatever you want. Just try a run and gun game. Or if you want, you can just try Contra. Good old Contra. That's it for me, guys. See you again on the next episode of Timeless Gamer. Bye.
All right. So that was Cuphead and Merc coming from Sir JDM. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, I admire his choices. Mercs. I didn't even know Mercs was a sequel to the game that I'm going to be talking about for my second game, Commando, on the arcade. I had no idea about that one, but yeah, I did not make the connection. And Cuphead, it's always been something that I'd been meaning to get the time to play through, because the very first time I saw the aesthetic of it, the 1930s, 1940s artwork really blew me away. Anything classic Betty Boop, Popeye, Felix the Cat style, Steamboat Willie style. It just appeals to me because because it harkens back to a simpler time, and the animation is so smooth. You can say what you want about how rough the artwork was back then, but the attention to detail of the artwork way back when was second to none, and they replicated that perfectly with this video game, Cuphead, Don't Deal with the Devil. I definitely want to play that in the future. I know my reflexes aren't going to be as good as anybody else's. I'm going to die a lot. But yeah, the sheer joy of seeing that kind of artwork replicated perfectly, one to one, in a video game, like if you were watching an old cartoon from, if you tune into Boomerang or maybe one of those TCM channels here in the United States, Turner Classic Movies channels, and you see that and you compare it to that video game, it's indistinguishable. And I am going to try it in the future. Excellent choices, JDM, all around. Viraj.
Yeah, I've got Cuphead on my Switch.
Okay.
So because I love, like, exactly what you say. The presentation of the game is 10 out of 10 outstanding, because it did something different. The people that put the effort into this game, it's all hand-drawn animation. That's why it looks so good. You know, it was the amount of work that went into making this quality piece of art, because I'm not going to call it a game, it's art. That's what this is. is just outstanding. Again, the narrative, the story, it's just really well done. It's simple, it's easy for you to follow, and you just get on with it. Well, one thing that I think JD might have missed out on is it. Not only is it a sort of run and gun sort of action platform element, but you also have shmup levels as well. So you got a mixture of gameplay that's in there. Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of boss patterns in Cuphead are lifted from early shmups such as Contra Hardcore and Gunstar Heroes. So again, like you have early shoot 'em ups as well, and obviously it must mean run and guns as well because obviously they're not shoot 'em up. But yeah, there are shoot 'em up levels as well. So it's pretty good. Yeah, I'm not looking down at you playing baby games. I have the same baby game as you. You know what I say? So I wouldn't say it's as challenging as you think it is, but I would say it's a challenge, and I think it's actually because you've got a hard mode as well. You have different challenge modes on it, but I would say it is a moderately challenging game. It's not too hard, it's not too easy at the same time, and it's a game for everyone. It's a game for everyone to enjoy and have fun with. Like, even though it has like a young person's look to it, obviously from people like us. Yourself, because you're from that era. I would say that it will obviously appeal to you as well because you appreciate the art style. I appreciate it. I think everyone will appreciate it. So definitely one that's not chatted about much now. It was really popular when it came out. It did get a lot of promotion, but I think it's one that people might have missed. And those who have missed it, you should definitely. It's an essential play in terms of modern run and gun gaming. So there's that. In regards to Mercs. Yeah, I mean, Commando. It's a follow-up to Commando, and that's a great game. I played it on the Mega Drive. There's a Mega Drive port to this, and it inspired other. There's a homebrew developer called Kai Magazine Software, and they created a game called Metal Dragon, which is a homebrew game for the Mega Drive, and it's basically Merc's DNA but modernized. It's a lot of fun. I think you'd actually enjoy that one, JDM, because it's a parody of Metal Gear Solid, and it marries the Metal Gear Solid and Mercs together. Definitely a game you should play. And so you should definitely give that one a go. And again, Kai Magazine Software went on to make other run and gun games or Metroidvania style run and gun games. So you've got Life on Mars and Life on Earth, which is a pure run and gun game. So other run and gun game developers have been inspired by Mercs, as you said in the video. So yeah, that very good choices, JDM. That's all I really have to say about your choices. I respect those choices you made.
With Sir JDM's game, Merc to me is like Contra, but designed more in detail. I mean, it's the same guy, muscular guy with a big ass gun, with a big motherfucking gun, battling soldiers and tanks, planes, what have you, ships, right? And then coming down to Cuphead. So the first time I saw Cuphead, when it was first announced in E3, I said, "This is something that you get when you take way too much LSD." And hey, who's to say that LSD cannot come up with something more productive like this? Right? When I signed up, I'm like,
smoking weed and getting high watching this game, playing this game. They smoke the ganja or whatever it is they're doing. Their pop.
Yeah, you feel like you took a bong hit or something. Like I kind of question what I was drinking back, and did I drink something?
I think it's creative game.
But to your guys' point, the aesthetic of it. It really does remind me of those 1930s cartoons, and I'm trying to remember which cartoons I saw some of those characters were. I mean, definitely Cuphead and Mugman were basically original creations, but the other characters shown there, I'm not sure if I saw them in Looney Tunes or
the Looney Tunes style, Woody Woodpecker, the
Melody back in the day.
Disney, to be honest, more Disney style.
Yeah, and old school Disney as well.
Yes,
right.
That style. The eyes are Disney.
more Disney than Looney Tunes, actually.
Disney style.
Yeah,
Disney style.
And so with Cuphead, because at first they said it was only on when it was first released, it was on the PC, I think,
PC,
I believe,
okay.
and then released eventually on
Console.
digitally on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live.
Mhm.
And just to prepare for this episode, just till this day, one of our EB games here, our local EB games here, have a one copy of an actual physical release of Cuphead just sitting there,
Mm.
and I'm like, I always keep seeing that there on the shelf, and I'm like, should I? I mean, what would I even do with it? For the sake of having it, just for the sake of, just because of how unique the game is.
Mhm. Well, the thing
I'm,
about
I'm, I'm,
Cuphead is
I'm, I'm trying to convince myself just to get it, just for the sake of it.
Mhm. Well, I think what's stopping you is the fact that Cuphead became ubiquitous already. It's like in everywhere. It's on PC, it's on PS4, on Switch. I think it's also on Xbox. Basically, you can find it anywhere, and getting the physical copy of it is, nice to have the fact that it's there, but
Mm.
you can find it anywhere now, and
It's quite cheap. It's cheap to get on digital.
but there's also that, yeah. So eventually, it's kind of like the FOMO, the fear of missing out, is not there for you. So
But,
there's really
but
no.
but it's a piece of art. It's good as an art collector. You'd want it. It's a good piece of
Yes.
video game art, and it is a
Yes.
staple to and a love letter to that art style of that era
Mm.
for those who love it. And it's worth owning because the amount of painstaking work that was put into
Yes,
it.
that's true.
That's worth it. All those animations are just outstanding, and that's not something you do.
Oh,
Also,
well,
Dan
there
said
you go.
it's on the Sega Mega Drive. You can take arcade
Yeah.
game and original
Oh.
mode, which includes a small RPG elements. I didn't know that. A lot of games assist to expand and improve the arcade this way.
Yeah, rocket
which is
propelled gun. Yeah, a lot of RPG elements indeed.
Well, yeah, that's true. But
Works is actually quite cheap to get on Mega Drive. It's very cheap.
Mhm.
You can buy it like
Mhm.
£15, £20. It's
Mhm.
affordable. So it's actually a good game to have in your Mega Drive
Well,
collection. 'Cause
I did not know that, John Mario. I'll have to delve into that. I'll have to do some research on what you're
By
saying
a
and
hot
verify
chick.
if it's true. Yeah.
How hot is hot? You know what?
I mean,
How hot is hot? You know what?
I mean,
Let's Google that. Let's Google that.
is it, hot chick, like, really, or are we talking about Rob Schneider movie Hot Chick?
The hot chick.
Oh my goodness, or like, funniest thing. I'll tell you guys about it off screen later. But we were just, I just heard,
You're just God.
It's tricky, and suddenly
It's
two things came to
tricky.
mind. Yeah, two things came to mind. It was SSX tricky and white chicks. So anyway, anyway, continue. let's continue. So we did JDM. We haven't heard from Joy yet. What are your choices? What's your first choice of run and gun?
Okay, so my first choice is another Konami game. I'm sensing a pattern here. Konami really does make good games. I mean even back in the 80s and 90s, right? Konami, really stand up studio right there, gaming studio, publisher, developer. So my game is Captain Bucky O'Hare.
Oh,
And
nice
for
choice.
those people who are not familiar with who is Captain Bucky O'Hare, then let me I can't really introduce him with proper justice. Not since the most famous rabbit out there, Bugs Bunny. We got Captain Bucky O'Hare. And the proper way to introduce him is just having his own intro song, right?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Another dimension, another time and space. A parallel universe is falling on its face. When out of the chaos, who else could it be? But the animal adventurers from SPACE. Bucky! Captain Bucky O'Hare. He goes when no ordinary rabbit would dare. If your righteous indignation has suffered a hit, and your photon accelerator is broken a bit, and you're losing your mind, and you're having a fit, get the funky fresh rabbit who can take care of it. To Bucky! Captain Bucky O'Hare. Choosing Bucky! I said Bucky! Bucky O'Hare! Let's crocus some toads!
Bucky O'Hare.
Yeah,
An,
Bucky,
an
Captain Bucky
excellent,
O'Hare.
excellent cartoon from the 90s. I can
Yeah.
honestly say one of the better written cartoons that I'd ever seen back in the 90s. And the 90s had some bangers when it came to cartoons too. I'll give it to Bucky O'Hare on that one. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, Captain Bucky O'Hare for the arcade. Okay, so Konami came up with the games. They came up with two games actually: Captain Bucky O'Hare for the arcade and for the NES. But I remember the arcade more. So they released this. They released both games in 1992,
Mm.
and the only reason why I wanted to play this because I saw the cartoon first. So the cartoon was I don't know what channel was that? Was it channel 9, I think?
Yeah,
Or was
likely 9 or 2, one or the other. Yeah.
either channel 2 or channel 9, I
Mhm.
believe. And
Mhm.
then and this was the time when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles blew up.
Was
So there were a
huge.
lot of cartoons back then who were trying to get the slice of the pie that the turtles pioneered. So and Captain Bucky O'Hare was one of them, and the story was captivating in itself. So basically, you got all of imagine if you will, you got all of the animals. In an alternate dimension, alternate universe, all of the animals are basically fighting for their lives, fighting against space toads, space frogs, who are basically amphibious Nazis.
Mm.
This is basically Star Wars for Star Wars, but with animals in this one. Um, so taking on adapting the storyline from the show and from the comics. You got four playable characters. You got Captain Bucky O'Hare himself. You got Blinky, the the android. You got Jenny, the feline, and you got right there showing in the screen. It's Dead Eye Duck. So Dead Eye Duck
The
is
four-armed duck. Yeah.
uh, four arms with an eye patch. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's the sharpshooter of the group, so he handles the main guns of the probably the best name of a spaceship can ever have.
The
Not
righteous
just the Millennium
indignation.
Falcon, the
Mm.
righteous indignation.
Yes.
That's their
Nice.
ship.
This was. I thought this was supposed to be a run and gun. What is this?
It
It is a
is.
running gun.
He's not
well,
running. He's just.
casually walking gun. Casually walking and gun.
It's not really much of a challenge, is it? You know what I mean? I mean, goodness me, it's a bit
Well,
slow.
well, you know what? He's faster if he's using his arms.
Mm.
So with all of these characters, Konami tried putting some variety in their moveset. Uh, I mean, in the surface, yeah, all of them are your basic attack. You're just shooting guns. Every once in a while, you'll get some power ups to upgrade your blasters. So you'll get two power ups. One will so your basic gun will just a laser blaster, and then when you upgrade it, it only makes it faster. And then on your second upgrade, it will make it more powerful, twice the damage. And so Konami gave each character here have their own special maneuvers as well. With Deadeye, if you press the shoot and the jump button, he will produce two light orbs circling around until it hits some enemies. And with Jenny the feline, if you press the same buttons, it will create some some slicing halos uh, um, that will that will go straight to the nearest enemy. If you choose Blinky the android, he will create this. Uh, it will activate his shoulder cannon. If you choose Bucky O'Hare, if you press the same buttons, he will throw out his energy. He will just throw out his energy grenade, and it will explode to the nearest enemy. Um, and then, just like in the X-Men, uh, was it X-Men? Yeah. So because Konami made this, it kind of feels like you're playing like an X-Men or Simpsons arcade as well. I mean, they have the play style really does remind you of those two games that Konami made. And aside from those special moves, also they also have uh, these energy explosions if you press the. So you got three buttons there. So you got your shoot, you got your jump, and then you got your explosions. By default, you only get um, two explosive grenades right there. In terms of enemies, not much of a variety here, because if you're going to the because if you're going with the show, you're battling the Toad Empire. It's just basically all sorts of frogs and all sorts of toads. Basically they're foot soldiers. Basically they're stormtroopers. Yeah. However, just like in the X-Men and the Simpsons arcade games, you also battle out mutants, and aliens that were featured on the show and topics as boss characters here before you face the air marshal of the Empire and Complex. Complex is basically Skynet from Terminator. Basically Skynet and the Emperor from Palpatine mixed together. Basically, that's your main boss. Which is weird because when we first played this, me and my brother played this on the arcade uh, back in the mid 90s, and w- personally, I could have cared less with the other games because I always keep going to this game first. If Alien versus Predator, if Alien versus Predator um, is being played by some other dudes, I would play this. I mean, this it's either this or Alien versus Predators. So so we will spend most of our money just buying tokens just to play this game. And eventually we did. We were able to finish the game. We were very proud to finish the game for the very first time. And when we battled Complex the first time, we were like, how come it doesn't look like Complex from the cartoon? It's just a giant computer basically. Anyway, so right there, that's Toadborg. What we're showing there in the in the footage. So just to prepare for this show, I tried putting a MAME emulator on my on my original Xbox so I can play it because I want an actual because I don't want to use my laptop as a MAME emulator. But there's way too much hassle to install that. So eventually, I put the MAME emulator on my laptop, sure, just so I can play Bucky O'Hare. And surprisingly, I don't know, maybe because I'm older and I don't have the anxiety of losing a lot of tokens, a lot of money. I was
Mhm.
able to finish this game in roughly 30-40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was this game really that short?
A lot of
But
arcade games are actually, yeah.
yeah,
When you take
although
away the factor of the quarter munching, a lot of
yeah.
arcade games when you realize it are actually pretty short.
So yeah, so if it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't even be remotely interested in this game. But because of my love for the show, I played the arcade game. So,
Mhm.
gentlemen, what are your thoughts about Captain Bucky here?
Oh, absolutely love. Again, I absolutely love the cartoon. Very intelligently written. I saw and played this in the arcades as well. I enjoyed this a lot too. I'd say because the colorfulness of this game lends it a little bit more a little bit more appeal than the usual games like The Simpsons or X-Men, and how faithful it is to the cartoon. It's really good too. I like how it looked. I liked how it played as a run and gun. It was pretty good too as well. You had to be aware of your surroundings. You had to make sure that everything that was coming at you, not just the enemies themselves, but the weapons that are being fired at you, you have to be careful of. And yeah, it's not your traditional run and gun because of the fact that it's not it certainly doesn't have beat 'em up elements to it. The
If
way that
you're close
it,
enough to if you're close enough against an
Mhm.
enemy, yeah,
Oh, you can.
they do
I
punch
always
them.
did. I always did
Yeah,
long range. I'm always the kind of guy
yeah.
who
I
does
always do
long
long
range.
range. I
Yeah.
don't want to get too close.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. So yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. Very, very good choice, Joe. I liked it. How about you, Viraj? What's your opinion on it?
I think it's shit.
Well, of course, to be expected
Of
from
course.
Viraj.
Oh,
Did you
basically,
ever
Shane.
see the cartoon? Did you ever see the cartoon way back when?
I did. I did watch the cartoon. I thought that was stupid as well.
Really?
I wasn't.
Why? What
Like,
makes you say it was stupid?
man, it's just Bugs Bunny, but doing
I think he's more of a gargoyles kind of guy.
A gargoyles
this
kind of
is
guy.
a
Okay, I understand that.
that duck. Yeah, it's Daffy Duck, but a different Daffy Duck. There's no originality to it. It's just Daffy Duck and Bugs
Mhm.
Bunny in space. That's what it was
Oh
to
no,
me as a
I
kid.
know I know what Viraj's jam is. He's more of a danger mouse guy.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Damn
Yeah, he's a danger mouse
Where
guy.
where is your video? Where is your video game then, huh?
Mhm. Yeah.
Where's your
Danger Mouse is
badass intro song, huh?
He's a
well,
danger mouse guy.
No, I
And
like. I
funny.
think if you're talking about, I did like Gargoyles, and that had a Mega Drive game. It wasn't a running gun.
Yeah, they
But
do.
I wasn't a fan of Bucky O'Hare. Like, it aired a few times in the UK. I thought, okay, I'll watch it. But there are better
Mhm.
cartoons, man. Darkwing Duck was there. DuckTales was out there. Like there were loads of great television shows. Like even like we said, Ninja Turtles. This is obviously this is actually them looking at their anthropomorphic sort of characters, and they're trying to jump on that bandwagon in terms of the cartoon
Mhm.
thing. But you know what? It wasn't really for me. The game doesn't interest me because it's like it basically is like it's wasted in the sense that for me it's like that. So Dan actually commented, said with its 8-way scrolling and side only shooting mechanic, Bucky O'Hare has a lot of traditional beat 'em up elements. Interesting
Mm.
combo. It looks. I mean,
Well,
I just think okay, you're shooting in one direction, but you're moving in 8 directions. I'm thinking, why can't you shoot upwards or downwards? I don't know. Maybe I need to
Mhm.
play the game. Maybe I'm just saying that, but you know, it's just not for me because I just think it's slow and it's just not my cup of tea.
It is
Let's be
slow.
honest. It's slow.
well,
They
technically, Mercs also is 8-way shooting too. When you stop and think
Yeah.
about it, right? Mhm.
Yeah, but no, but he's not this character. Where's he shooting? You know what direction he's
Mm.
shooting in? So it's two
Well,
ways.
there
And
you
I
go.
think-
It-
I mean, I look at this game, and for me, yes, the graphics look lovely and all that, but I can see myself getting bored.
I
At the
mean,
same
to serve
time, I can see this.
Raj's
It's
point.
three-player.
Yeah,
It's the three-player multiplayer, which is where this game can be really fun. I think it's a game that probably be a lot more fun if you had 3 people playing with you. I think that could be
Probably,
Well,
yes.
yes, yes.
Maybe
Absolutely.
there's that. Maybe the element of the multiplayer aspect, probably. Mhm.
It just for me
But to
personally.
serve Raj's, so to serve Raj's point, to those people who were enticed with the cartoon,
Mhm.
a lot of the love coming, the amount of love that this game gets, mostly comes it comes from the cartoon as well.
Yes.
So if you're not familiar with the cartoon at all, even if you are familiar with the cartoon and you didn't like the cartoon, most likely you're not going to be playing this game either.
Mm. True. I guess this is one of those things where it's a multi-franchise thing. If you watch the cartoon, you played the game. If you played the game and watched the cartoon, you bought the comic book. So it's a
Well, I
franchise.
I wasn't too invested in the cartoon. I mean, I can appreciate
Mhm.
the art of it. It looks like
Mhm.
a nice looking game, but for me, like in a world where we've got so many running guns, like it isn't one I'd go to. I mean, there's another running gun Konami made, which Sunset Riders, that has more appeal to me than this
Sunset Riders.
does. Yeah. So,
Well,
I mean, we haven't
if
mentioned that.
I would recommend if this is not Virage's style because it's slow, you try a game called Jazz Jackrabbit. Then that was Sonic
Oh, yeah,
before
yeah.
Sonic was a thing. Mhm.
Yeah.
Jazz
Well,
Jackrabbit.
I like things slow actually. Me and
Yeah.
Sergio will like this game because it's slow.
Agreed.
It's not as fast as crazy fast like hardcore
Mhm.
Contra.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not
All
saying
right.
that to be.
Excellent choice.
I'm not saying that a running gun always has to be fast. Yeah, I just want to be
Mhm.
very clear about that. Like, just because
Mhm.
hardcore is like hardcore and it's a lot of fun because it's fast, you can still have a running gun which is at a slower pace. But I just don't dig the whole. Okay, you got this 3D plane, you're walking around, but you can only shoot in two directions, back and forth, and it just
Mhm.
looks like boring, uninspiring gameplay.
Well,
Sorry. I mean, the art is
it's
great, but it just sounds like something that I could easily get through. To be honest, there you have
well,
it.
that's the way that Viraj phrased it. It's a pretty good segue to my game that I'm going to be discussing. My second game for the run and gun choices. I've only got two choices right now. I mean, I had a lot of choices. I could have talked about Jazz Jackrabbit. I could have talked about Shock Troopers. I could have talked about Shock Troopers on the arcade. But I want to particularly focus on this one game that should be familiar with a lot of players in the Philippines and maybe Asia players who really got their Famicoms going at the early part of the console's life cycle. It was a game called Commando, and this game called Commando popped up on the Japanese Famicom, and it was a port of an arcade game as well called Commando. So no title change here, no Russian attack from Green Beret and everything like that. This was a Japanese Famicom game called Commando, which had you as a World War II soldier, I think, or Vietnam soldier. They kind of meld together that era because they have the same kind of aesthetic, what it looks like back then, running through the jungle, shooting up bad guys. You have a machine gun of infinite ammo. You pick up grenades. You get uh, you land in the jungle from a helicopter, and you have a machine gun. You shoot at, I presume, either Viet Cong or like regular guys, other enemy soldiers in the forest, and you.
So it's not Russia, it's Vietnam now. Okay.
Yes, in this time, I'm presuming it's Vietnam. So you pick up grenades, you throw them. The grenades reveal secret passages. The way that Viet Cong burrows are. You go down there, you rescue fellow soldiers, and it's a matter of making sure that you get from point A to point B, shooting as many bad guys as you can, racking up points, and hoping that your grenades land where you throw them, because the perspective is a little hard in terms of how slow the movements are. It does not compare to Contra. This does not compare to Contra. This does not compare to other running guns like Metal Slug. Metal Slug is faster than this one, and it's more of an exploratory, trying to survive your way out of the jungle kind of thing while rescuing fellow hostage soldiers. The funniest thing is I never made the connection until later on when I read that the name of the soldier in this game called Commando, both on the arcade and on Famicom, was Super Joe. And for those of you who are familiar with Capcom lore, Super Joe is the name of the original soldier from the Bionic Commando series. Turns out that this Commando game is the first game in the Commando series. So if you guys are familiar with Bionic Commando with the extending arm that doesn't jump but you can swing from ledge to
Yeah.
ledge, this is who that Bionic Commando comes after. This is Super Joe from the Vietnam era, and then later on, Bionic Commando is the sequel to this game. So, in essence, the arcade game is much faster. It's much harder than the Famicom version, and
Yeah.
the when I played it on the Famicom, it was a treat. It was hard to play, and with 8-way shooting and everything, it was still somewhat in the grenade here. That you always have to time your grenade right. That whenever that bike comes up over the bridge, you have to throw it properly so that hopefully it lands and destroys that bike. It's frenetic, lots of bullets coming at you, lots of grenades coming at you, and your ultimate goal is to penetrate the enemy base and destroy it, and get airlifted out of the jungle from with the whatchamacallits, with the helicopter. The helicopter flies off and lands at a different part of the jungle, and you start all over again. It's cyclical. You keep going. It's an endless game, all the way to high score. And of course, at the very end, you get this nice little English ending that says you are best player, blah blah, and everything. You just love that, And of course, the bad spelling, Mashine gun instead of machine gun, Machine. Badly translated, but it very much lends to the charm of the game, both in the arcade and in the Famicom version. They kept the bad spelling, the English grammar in the Famicom version as well. So I love it or hate it. It's still a significant part of video game history for those of you who wanted to delve into a little bit of lore, Capcom lore. Commando, both on the arcade and the Famicom, is the game to play. Dan Faulkner says Commando was awesome first time. Great shot, Sir Joel. Hugely ported game too on arcade, Nintendo Entertainment System, Atari 2600, and television. A huge bunch. And Dan says he had the BBC Micro version. Kurt Labrado, who, at our chat says this reminds me of the game Jackal for the NES. Good shout, Kurt. Very good, very good. Yes, a lot of the same formats, the same styles, kind of repeated themselves in different games in that era. I mean, you had limited programming capabilities. You had limited, not programming capabilities. The programmers did magic with the limitations of the limited hardware that they had. But you were forced to use certain assets and techniques again and again, and it kind of suffered for it. But still, you just loved the effort and the soul that the programmers put into these games way back when. I mean, Viraj is very much down on the Atari 2600 era, that kind of time in television. But I'm the kind of guy who looks at it and says, these guys put in blood, sweat, and tears into these games anyway, and you have to appreciate that too. So, I mean, I don't fault him for that. If that's not his style, that's perfectly fine. But everybody has to have a certain level of respect for the people who did all the hard work from back then. It's fine if it's not your style, but yeah, it's still cool. All right, opinions, gentlemen.
So it's very good. I think I mean, look, it's okay. Whatever, man. So what? It's obviously the prequel. Obviously, it's the first game in the series before we got Mercs, and sadly, this was the one. Mercs was nowhere near as successful as this. Sadly, in the arcades, anyway, in the two-period games, it's one of those things. And this was obviously revolutionary for its time, whereas Mercs was more of an evolution to this, as we saw later on. So, because this stood out as being, because there's nothing quite like it when this came out. Obviously, we're talking about the arcade versions and the NES talk, but it's on the NES or Famicom, shall we say? It's all right. I mean, it's not a game that I care to play because it's just too primitive for me. Yes. And I'm honestly, I'll be honest, I'm above this, to be honest. I mean, why would I bother with playing this sort of primitive rubbish? But then that being said, you mentioned Atari 2600. I actually bought the Atari 2600 Replicade from New Wave Toys, and the game was called Berserk. That's that is a run and gun. That's actually the very first run and gun I played was the Atari Berserk game. And I loved that game, to be honest. So that's even more primitive than this. So maybe I'm a hypocrite saying that. Maybe I just graphics.
No, but the thing about Berserk is that it had those wonderful what do you call that graphic? The same type of graphic that Star Wars Arcade had, photon neon. Yeah, something like that. It kind of lends a certain charm in how simple its graphics are.
It's very sharp in how it looked in the arcade. I wouldn't say it's that graphic. It's very and also you got a robot voice saying "chicken fight like a human." It's got that robot voice in the arcade, and it teases you to play. So Berserk was actually, every time like the first run and gun game that I can think of that I played was Berserk on the Atari 2600. Obviously, I've got the arcade version on my Minicade, which is down in my TV area. But I even though this is primitive, I can understand why obviously for its time, if you have a nostalgia for it, it's great. It's weird because this is how I look at it. The NES was an era where they were learning to program in 2D with better graphics, shall we say. In the 16-bit era, it perfected that. So I'm more prone to play a much more polished 16-bit run and gun than I would an 8-bit one, because I know it's going to be light years better than an 8-bit one. The reason I played Berserk is because the graphics, even though they were primitive, they were simple and polished. When I look at the NES game, I was just never really a fan of the color palette the NES used. So whenever you show me a NES game, I'm like, oh, this game looks ugly. It's ugly.
I have to admit, yes. I have to admit, the limitations really constricted it, especially in terms of the color palette.
But I mean, I wasn't born. This game came out literally the year I was born. It's old. I mean, obviously you were a kid when this came out, so this was like seen as amazing for you. So it's perception. It's perception. Would I? I'm not saying I would never ever play this game. I have played it because I've done a build on my SNES, with all these NES games on there. So I played it for a bit, and I thought, okay, great. But obviously, I'm more inclined to play Mercs because it's 16-bit.
And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. We all have our preferences, and like I said, I was kind of down on modern realistic games until most recently, until when I got to actually play them. I would say, just give it a try. And if you like it, then cool. If not, then, that's perfectly fine too. We all have our preferences. How about you, Joe?
So this is Commando. So how is this related to the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Commando?
Not at all, no. Because this was... yeah. This was Vietnam.
Nothing at all.
I mean, I wish it were.
That's probably why it got successful, because everyone thought Commando, I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it's nothing to do with the bloody movie.
That's true. That's true. People were thinking,
they were just
it's the Arnie game. I mean, heck, I mean,
looking at your guy, he doesn't look buff like Arnold.
No.
But I mean, he's wearing a helmet. Arnold didn't wear a helmet in Commando.
No, Arnie wouldn't be so pansy that he needed a helmet the entire movie. No, in the Commando movie, he just went, like with the face war paint and everything, and they had to go rescue his daughter, who was played by none other than Alyssa Milano. Everybody loved that one. Anyway,
this is probably John McCain experience.
Yeah, that's true.
This is basically John McCain fighting his way out of Vietnam until he got.
John McCain, they're two different people. John McCain went for president of America. He's a different person altogether. And John
McCain here in the U.S. was bragging about his military record, and it turns out that it's not as not as real as he made it out to be.
Right. Although at first when I saw the gameplay, I'm like, why are the bullets just like they stop midway?
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm
like, okay, so I mean the enemies ammunition are pretty much the same, so it's not just you.
Yes. I mean, if you want to stretch it, if you want to stretch a little bit of logic, that means that it factors in bullet angle based on gravity. So, but then again, I'm overthinking that part. Yes, in general, yes, Commando is a nice little run and gun from the arcades that got ported to the Famicom, and again, one of those games that you just rush through, play through, maybe do a speed run of, but maybe have some fond memories of in the back of your head, or like somewhere when you stop and think, oh, that was a fun little thing. But it's not something that you will come back to in the future and say this is a classic of the genre.
So with Commando and Mercs, so how are those games related to Ikari Warriors then?
Ikari Warriors. Yeah, Viraj would be more.
Yeah, Ikari Warrior. First of all, Ikari Warriors, that was developed by SNK, and this was developed by Capcom. So there you go, two different games companies. And two, Ikari Warriors has less run and gun elements. It's more stab and run, top down. It's only Ikari Warriors 3 where you get a gun. Is that a run and gun? Whereas the first two Ikari Warriors, you had to be strategic. You could get a gun and run and gun, but it was the traditional game, you stab and run. So Ikara Warriors has a slightly different element, and I would not say that Ikara Warriors is a run and gun. Maybe one of those 3 games is, but they are top-down action games for the most part. There you go. There's your answer.
Ikari Warriors was SNK.
Yeah.
SNK. So that's why they're part of the King of Fighters
Yep.
fighting game series.
You got
Okay,
Ralph
got
and
it.
Clark. Yeah.
Okay.
Riddle, we learned something. Wonderful. So I'm being obnoxious.
There you go. Heck,
Facetious.
yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Ralph,
we're
it's Ralph
we're
and
dropping
Clark.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that was my
It's-
second game of the
it's
series.
Ralph and Clark if you're playing Ikari Warriors, the Japanese version. But if
Mm.
you're playing Ikari Warriors, the Western version, I think their names are something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's
So there
definitely
you
Ralph
go.
and Clark.
It don't matter what their name is. Okay, what is this thing with you in stories and backgrounds? Just play the game. You just run and gun.
I love
Because
It keeps me
stories.
engaged.
If you've ever seen The Sandman on
Mm.
Netflix, he explains it
I love the
properly.
Sandman.
Well, there you go. That's it. If you by Neil Gaiman, he explains it properly. Stories are what keeps us going. That's
Yeah,
the entire premise of humanity. The story is what keeps you going.
We're not savages, Sir Viraj.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't play this out just because we enjoy the violence.
Mhm.
We want reason to the violence.
I mean, yeah, it's not so much. Yeah, correct, precisely. Joe nailed it exactly. Mhm.
They're the bad guys.
Vi-
There's a reason to shoot them. That's it. They're bad.
Yeah, well, that's it. Sometimes you enjoy it for what it is, but sometimes you also kind of wonder, why am I doing this? What is the
Why
purpose
am I
of
doing
this?
that? And
Yes.
why is he alone doing this?
There's
I
also
mean,
that. Yeah.
what happened to his regiment? He's
Well, there
taking
you
all
go.
of the enemies
Well, he's
by
a
himself.
one-man army. He's a
One-man army.
All right.
Like,
Well, there you
I mean,
go.
like
That's-
all run and guns games are.
Well,
We
you're saying that. You're saying that, Viraj. The fact that he's a one-man army, you're already applying story to it. That's it. There you go.
No, but one
Anyway.
So there's a reason for him to go alone, though.
I mean, okay, you have a story, but it doesn't require that much death. Like, oh, you know, he killed my family. These guys killed my family, and now we've got to come after him in revenge. Or, you know, or
you
basically,
could.
you're in a war. You're in a war.
You
They're the
could.
bad guys.
Yeah, that's true. Technically, you don't have to, but you could. You know.
Don't
Anyway,
remember
that's my second game of the genre, Commando, for arcades that got ported into Famicom. All right, so I guess
Alright, so-
it's
Let's do another recording.
yes,
So
sounds
if
good.
Sir Viraj thinks this game is so dated and old, let's see with this one. Sir Dan, you're up again.
Let's go.
Hello again, Timeless Gamer crew. On to my second run and gun choice. We're going to go with Striker's Run for the BBC Micro. It was released in 1986, and it was developed by Superior Software. Now, if you know anything about the BBC Micro, Superior Software were the boys. They were the Mac Daddies. They developed some banging games, some great games, all kinds of genres. You had famous games like Citadel, which the likes of Metroid copied, and they just tried a load of different things, and pretty much everyone were top dollar. Striker's Run was their main foray into run and guns. It got a sequel, codenamed Droid, Striker's Run 2. But that was more of a Metroidvania game again, where they combined what they learned here from what they implemented in Citadel. So Striker's Run itself, I mean, it's not that good a game, to be honest. The Contra Hard Corps, which I mentioned, is still amazing today. That Contra Hard Corps would be in my top 10 games of all time today still, after playing 30 odd years of games, 40 odd years of games now, whatever. Easily it would be in there. But Striker's Run, it's dated, and it is a dated game. It's not a it's a very slow, ponderous, basic run and gun games that I would recommend people to check out for the historical value. And it's a game that it can be played pretty easily and shortly, but it's not ever going to feature in a top 10 of mine, or a top, even probably a top 100, top 200 of mine, to be honest. But I'm very nostalgically attached to it. This really was at a time when run and guns weren't that common on home systems. Strikers Run was my first real home-based run and gun experience, and it just it was really impressive graphically, but it did a few things that you didn't expect it to do. One of the big things that it allows you to do is to travel in vehicles. You can travel in various like helicopters and spaceships, and it adds a real great dynamic to the play. And it was just such a joy to go on this journey. It did feel like a run. It really it was obviously inspired by Logan's Run, and it was a game that offered a BBC player something, a more arcadey experience. BBC micro games, there were some arcadey games on there, definitely, but they tended to try and put, there were more that type of Metroidvania style game. You had the likes of Repton and Devil's Causeway and Plan B that were the structures of the games, because the graphics and the memory and that was so limited. The game structure is where generally the value of the game lies, and they couldn't blow you away with playability and arcade wow. A lot of arcade games, and when they made Sega Mega Drive and Master System and that came along, it felt good. You were satisfying to blow things up, and it had that impact to everything. Whereas your BBC Micro just didn't have that. It was like, as you'll see from this, Strikers Run was a very, just a steady game, as steady as a run and gunner you can get. But it is for me just a really nostalgic game. It just was something really cool and just always stuck with me. Really, it felt badass. It felt really badass. And like I say, we were a 1986 game, so there weren't that many run and guns that were on home systems at the time. So Strikers Run, it's like I say, it's a game. I like to pick, when we're doing these when we're doing these shows, I like to pick games that if somebody goes and plays now, like Contra Hard Corps, they will have a cracking time. I mean, if you can get past the initial difficulty by a Contra Hard Corps, you've got a timeless 10 out of 10 game there. Whereas Strikers Run, you won't. You'll just have a laugh with it, but it's definitely just worth checking out just to see what microcomputer and arcade style games are like. So that's my little recommendation for you to check out. Keep your gaming timeless.
Striker Run for the BBC Micro.
I'm almost afraid to hear what Viraj is going to say about this one. I'm going to expect him to say, this melted my eyes and gave me diarrhea or something like that. Viraj.
So just a bit of background on the format that it was developed on. So the BBC microcomputer was developed basically to help people with.
I never heard of the BBC Micro, to be honest.
It was made by a company called Acorn Electronics. They're the manufacturer.
So it's not affiliated with the actual BBC network.
No, it is. The BBC.
Is it? I thought it was like a standalone company by itself.
No, so basically, let me explain. So the manufacturer was Acorn Computers, but BBC did all the software and all that crap with it.
Okay. Got it.
Right?
Okay.
So they developed the software that ran with it, and the Acorn computers. Acorn was a company, and there's Acorn Atom, Acorn Archimedes, and Acorn Electron. We use Acorn computers in British UK schools in the late 80s, early 90s. To teach people how to word process and things like that. But they were capable of playing PC games for the format as time went on. But yeah, it's of course this game is primitive, and even for its time, obviously Dan is speaking from a point of nostalgia. Yeah, that's what he's speaking from, and the game, it looks slow by today's standards. I mean, the system ran at 2 megahertz, for crying out loud. But look, I can understand that for its time, it was a very special system. It was a very special computer, and you know, it was innovative for its time. But would I play that game? No, fuck no. Why would I even touch that game? You know, it's
Well,
too slow. It's too slow.
well,
Like, I haven't got the patience for it.
that's the thing, though, Viraj. For somebody like me, who's of the opinion that with so many systems that have come before, Sinclair, BBC Micro, the
Yeah.
Spectrum,
Well,
Amiga, everything.
let me just do the hierarchy of this here, because the rich people of that era, well, the people of that era, you had the Micro, and this is actually probably it. But as time had gone on, you know, when you get to 86 and onwards, you got the Commodore 64. That's
Okay, the
industry.
C64, yeah.
That's the benchmark. If you had a Spectrum, you're fucking poor. Sorry, excuse my language here, but you're poor.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. The kids are asleep already. Okay.
You're poor. Okay. And BBC Micro is in that list of, okay, it was an industry standard for schools basically, and you can play basic games on it, and it's obviously better graphically than a ZX Spectrum. I don't even know why people can say that was I couldn't enjoy quite that system. Everyone goes on about it because it was accessible for so many, because it was affordable. And computers were expensive in the 80s.
Oh yeah, cost an arm and a leg back then.
Commodore 64 is definitely middle class, and you have to be middle class to get 64. And the Amiga 500 was if you're rich. You're rich if you had an Amiga 500.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, when I look at Dan, obviously this tells me a story about his life. The format he's talking about is more. That's more interesting that he played on it, because it tells me a lot about him and where he came from. You know, and look, credit to him. You know, he actually appreciated this game. You know, when it came out, and he liked it, and he got a joy out of it. If I was pretty born in this era,
of course, he could afford the BBC Micro. He is Sir Dan of Faulkner.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you know, it's I don't know why they call it. I mean, the BBC Micro, the name itself is a contradiction in itself. Man, how can you be BBC and Micro? I mean, it makes no sense. But
Well,
now,
because they way back when, I think the computers were divided into mainframes, minis, and micros, if I remember correctly. Mainframes, minis, and micros. So.
Yeah. So,
I'm more familiar with the Amiga and Commodore, and then the Apple II.
Yes.
Well,
and then when they said BBC Micro, what the hell is that?
So Commodore Amiga, same company. If you're looking at the ZX, well, Spectrum Sinclair, that's Sinclair. And then you also have, like, you know, the BBC Micro, and then you have so many of the others. Yeah, Amstrad, you know, had him, and that was the
Amstrad. Yeah.
So there are a number of these computers that were being developed. And I tell you what, one thing I'll say about Britain, and something I'm very proud about in this country, is a lot of these people who coded and developed games for the 16-bit era and created their own companies and went on were using these sort of computers to program. While you Americans were enjoying your NES, thinking that saved the video game crash, we were making the we were developing it. And one thing about Britain is, in terms of graphics and developing games, we're big here. People come here. People come to the United Kingdom to make games like Rockstar Games. It's British. It's a British company. Grand Theft Auto. Probably the highest grossing video game, well, a very expensive video game that they're making now. So a lot of great games came from, and innovations like the Super FX chip for the Super Nintendo, Starwing. Argonaut Software developed that with Nintendo. British. Yeah, a lot of great innovations come from here. So, you know, the format, great. You know, the game on it is primitive by my standards, but I'm sure, you know, Dan had a lot of fun with it back in the day, because that's all he had, and that was the limitations, as he said. Great, but for me, not my thing. Like, Dan, he's written something. Here we go. My dad was in
rebuttal from Sir Dan.
My dad was an industrial engineer, so when the UK miners' strike was on, we were poor as dirt. But he siphoned all top electric equipment through contracts work. And actually, like I said, to Dan's point, though, it's historical. And the fact is, with so many systems that are out, that ever came out, and so much software out, I don't think that there is a comprehensive list of all video games for all possible consoles there is. I mean, if there is, I'm not aware of it. But if I had access to that, I would love to pour through all of those games that ever came out on every system, Sinclair, Spectrum, Amiga, everything. And I want to at least try each one of them once, so that I can actually say, I've tried that. That's, you know, primitive, but it had the makings of a great game. And the elements of that game got borrowed and integrated into a later game called blah blah blah, something like that. So
Mm.
as historic as a video game historian, this interests me greatly, and I have to say thank you to Dan for exposing me to this one, to that game in particular. I'll have to do some research on it, maybe the game library of that platform as well, and the games that are related to it, the games that got developed corollary and side by side with it. So yeah, these games look interesting to me, honestly. Viraj might be tearing his eyes out right now, but me and Miss Eileen in the chats, who says, back then video no, that Miss Eileen said,
For JDM.
yes, these were how things were back then. JDM says back when video games only had 4 colors. And Miss Eileen has a question there. Did you need extra TV license for the BBC Micro? I don't think that applied, no, because it wasn't a broadcast thing, right? No. No.
15 to 20 games still hold up, so it's pretty cool. Though. Love him.
Yeah, there you go. So a
There
little
we
bit
go.
of a history lesson there for all our listeners and viewers. The British side of the computer industry was very rich. If you are
Yeah.
at all interested in a little bit of computer history, that's the place to delve.
It's
All right.
not just
We-
Japan. It's not just America, guys. There's another part of the world who
It's
also
not
do
just
video
America.
games.
It's not just Japan. It's not just Japan. It's not just America. It's also this these little forgotten little countries called England and whatnot. Like
Forgotten, man. They're the old world.
Scandinavia. Yeah. Like,
These teen chuggers
yeah,
also do video games.
these little Scandinavia and
Yeah.
things like that.
These stones, these stone eaters right
One thing,
here.
the name for your country is called the United Disgrace of America. That's what
Mm.
we're calling you now.
That's what we love.
Um,
That's what we love about having an international audience. We're just enjoying, guys.
To server at this point earlier, so when you mentioned that that Striker's run is slow, he is not wrong.
Mhm.
When I was doing the video package for Sir Dan, and I said, is my computer lagging or something? Because the
I'd rather
actual
put-
footage
yeah.
of the actual footage is quite slow. Like
Mhm.
just to give a like a comparison. So when I did Sir Dan's video package, I had to speed things up like 3 times
Mhm.
because it's making me doze off.
Well, the hardware limitations back then, but like Dan says, they did what they could with what they had, and he says the BBC Micro still has around 15 to 20 gigs, which still hold up. Sergio, you would love Imogen, genius game. I'll have to check that out. Imogen. So yeah, I'll
right.
definitely.
So
check
I'm
that out.
showing you guys right now the
actual.
actual frame rate of
Mhm.
the game.
Mhm. Yep.
So yeah.
I mean, heck, I'd still play it. I'd still do it. I'd still go through this. I'd still give it a quick run through and say, hey, I experienced a little bit of computer history with this one, and I see what Dan is talking about. I'd still give it a go.
So this is more like a casual walk and sometimes gun kind of game.
Mhm, yeah. All right.
Sometimes.
So that's Dan's game. Again, look at Viraj. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that Viraj is having a conniption right now. But,
Exasperated right now.
What a game! He played so many games. He picks that one because of nostalgia. That's what it is.
Take him right there.
Oh, there you go. All right. Did Viraj do his second one yet? No, not yet.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Let's revert to the second one.
Let's pull a proper game out because we've had some real.
Okay.
No, a proper game.
A proper game. Okay.
A proper game.
Proper game. It's a Game Boy Advance title. Okay, it's not. It's quite obscure, but not obscure. It's made by EA, so I know mentioning this is making. I'm going to hell straight away because it's made by EA. It's called.
Oh, but EA is not the most hated company nowadays anymore. It's Ubisoft. Anyway, continue, Viraj.
Yeah, true. It's called
No, it's
Medal
called
of
EA.
Honor Infiltrator. Okay, Medal of Honor
Infiltrator.
Infiltrator. It's a game. So if we bring it up, you'll see it shares a lot of the genetics that your beloved Commando and JDM's beloved Mercs has. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's a top-down game, but again,
What the game? Sorry.
Medal of Honor Infiltrator.
Medal of Honor Infiltrator. Yeah.
On
Mhm.
that
Ah, Medal of Honor Infiltrator. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a GBA game. I think it came out in 2003, I believe. And I remember seeing it at work because I used to work in the game shop. I looked at this game. I kept looking at it, and then eventually I downloaded the ROM and I fell in love with this game.
Oh.
And then eventually it got reduced to £12.47. It's funny how I remember the price I paid for it. £12.47 clearance. I bought it, and I loved this game. Okay, because it's just so intuitive with the controls of the GBA. It uses the GBA's hardware to its potential. Some good music for what it was, and it's a game I think JDM would like because you got to have stealth elements in it. So there we go. We shoot them, boom, 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 boom. I don't know, it's it's stuck there. The video's stuck. So you have you have a choice of a gun that you can get. You also got a machine gun. You can use a rifle to shoot them. Whoever's playing this is rubbish. I'm so much better than this person. So you can actually go up to bad guys and take them out from behind. And so if you press the fire button, it will just turn into a knife and you can shank them from behind. Has a lot of Metal Gear Solid elements with stealth as well, so you can sort of sneak up on people and things like that, which is pretty cool. You can throw grenades. You've got dynamite, so you can blow things up. So basically, it's set during World War II. It's obviously that Normandy landings happen, and you play as this like elite GI who goes in there and has to go on mission. So you have to like blow up a munitions plant, blow up a tank depot, and all sorts of things. So you've got your main objective, and then you also have secondary objectives. So in the game, you can go in, you might have to get some secret documents. If you miss it, you don't get the second objective, but it's an incentive to get all the objective done. The main objective is all you need to do to get through the level. So you have that. You got 100 health, and you can obviously get bandages on the way. That's basically it. You just have to just shoot the guys, get the objectives complete, and there you go. It also has an element of a gallery shooter as well. So there's some levels where you got to shoot a submarine, you got to shoot all the plants or whatever. That's basically it. There is a story with this game, so you'd like this, Sir Joe. So basically, you're after this Nazi bastard called Diesler. I remember that. That's as much as the story I remember. He's the one that's doing all these.
It's World War II. That's the story.
Yeah, that's basically it. But yeah, that's it. But it's a lot of fun. Stealthy stuff. You got to blow up the guys, get through the level, boom, but also complete the objectives. So I don't know who's playing here, but he's absolutely garbage at this game. He's got caught. The spotlight got him, so now because the alarm will go off and all the guards will come after you, sort of thing. So
that makes sense.
Okay.
It's one of the basic elements of World War II games and movies. Avoid the spotlight.
Yeah. So,
because me and Joel are history buffs as well, so this is something that we would play actually.
You got that little plane, the Messerschmitt. So again, he's going to take this guy out here. He's going to go into that little hole there to change the weapon if he's got any sense, but he's not going to do that. What's he doing?
We're raising Viraj's blood pressure, not just with our choice of games, but also with our choice of clips. Okay.
But this is a secret. This is like the secondary objective where he goes here and he has to blow up the munitions plant as well as destroy the plane as well. So many different facets to it. So it's not just a case of you have to kill all the bad guys and get through the level. Yes. No. You have to complete various. So he's put a dynamite stick there. He's going to blow up that airplane, and it'll be mission objective complete. Or there might be an anti-aircraft on his stuff as well. So you have an elements of what this game is. You grab the machine gun and shoot him. I don't know why he hasn't done that. This guy's an idiot who's playing this. I should have done it. Maybe I'm just that good at this game.
Okay.
Maybe he's just challenging himself. Okay, not everyone plays the same.
Yeah, but there's a difference between watching somebody else play a beloved game of yours. That's the big problem because you know how it should be done, whereas this guy is not doing it all wrong according to Viraj.
Maybe he likes it hard.
As you see, he's changed the weapon to a drum gun. So he's got different weapons you can choose from, and there's a combination of a bomb, where it be a dynamite or a grenade you have, or and some weapons are more powerful than others, some are more appropriate than others, and certain else. So you have a choice. You've got a lot of varied gameplay. You've got various objectives you have to complete through the level, and you got obviously you want to get a top score as well. So you know there's so much replay value with this game. Another thing I like is the way the controls are. So you got the L and R buttons on the GBA. So the L and R button can make you sort of strafe and control him. So you can have him put in one direction and the gun diagonally and still have him moving around to lock the gun, which is really good. So you have a lot more control over him. So this is him destroying munitions plant. And again, with the, I think it's the B button, you change the weapon, and A is obviously for fire. So very simple, and obviously D-pad, very simple controls, very intuitive control, very responsive controls. And it is actually an outstanding game on the GBA, which I don't think it got recognized, because when you think of Medal of Honor, you think of the console games. You don't think of the handheld. And there was Medal of Honor Underground, which was basically a 3D style game for the GBA. And the graphics for that, and you don't need me to tell you, the 3D sort of GBA stuff is a 50-50. It can be good or it can be really grainy, shall we say, and pixelated. This thing is appropriate for the hardware, and it's really, really good. And I only noticed it because of ROMs and emulation, and that's what led me to buying the actual official release. When I played it on emulation, I thought, no, I want to actually buy it on the actual hardware, and it plays so much better on the official hardware. So there you go. Medal of Honor Infiltrator. Better than Mercs, okay, and better than Commando. But it would be because it's been made so many years later, borrowed so many elements for those games, which were the foundation for something like this. As you can see, he's running. He's not a walking gun. He's running. Yeah, the sprite shows he's running, and he's there. Mission objective speaker, it'll tell you, and then you get to the end of the level. It's really good.
Now,
So
one big advantage of this over the classic ones like Commando and Mercs is the strafe function. Strafe is a game changer, honestly, because it was hard. Even in games like Shock Troopers, it could have used a strafe function, really, honestly. This one, it looks like it implements it properly, and
it does.
I would give this a go. It looks like a lot of fun.
You'll love it. You will love this game. The only thing, the criticism I have of this game, which I don't like, which I mentioned, was earlier, which is an asset, the gallery shooting stages. I found that to be quite hard to control. But you tell me what you think. But those stages were a bit of a challenge, where you're basically the camera's panning you this way, and all the enemies are coming in the background and foreground. You have to shoot them, and you have to get through the level and survive, basically, because they're shooting at you back as well. So you have to take them out before you take them out. So it can get quite tense, those levels. They are fun, and they do merit the game, but I think the controls on those weren't as sharp as they could be. Maybe that's just in the game's design. I don't know, but that's the only critique I have. Otherwise, I like this game. You can get into tanks as well. You can also get into vehicles, which is pretty cool, and blow people up in the tank stages. So there are many other facets to the game. Stealth stages, not to get caught. And again, it's just a lot of fun. Obviously, you've got ammunition. It's limited in certain stages. So obviously, you've got little ammo stores. There you go. Can you see when you pause the game, it shows you all the objectives that you got to do.
So one of his objectives is to destroy a gun, and he's going to do that now. Boom. There you go.
That's the main.
Okay.
So, and there were sub objectives as well, and you can see what they are. That main, and you see you get those 2 medals. So he's done main objectives and all the sub objectives. So you want to get those 2 medals in every stage if they're available. So there you go. So and you get extra as well. So a lot of fun. This game. Definitely a must play and an underrated hidden gem on the Game Boy Advance. That's what I will say, in my opinion.
And overall, the Game Boy Advance has a lot of hidden gems, honestly. Now that you've shown me this one, I'm going to give this one a try.
Sadly, it doesn't have a lot of run and guns and shoot 'em ups. It doesn't have. It has
they have some video footages as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and this is a Game Boy Advance game, yeah.
Yes. You do FMV, but obviously the resolution is tight. Obviously, this has been ripped from an original Game Boy. So if you play it on your computer, it'll look really, distorted. Those resolutions. But other than that, it's just such a fun game. And obviously, you've got different settings. You've got obviously a desert level, a beachhead level. You've got like an urban level. You've got a grass level, and that's it. So obviously, this is a stealth level. It's showing you where all the guards are. Make sure you don't get clocked, because you'll get shot at, and more guards will just come and shoot you, and you'll just whittle down your health. So you have to be really stealthy. So this is one for JDM, to be honest, because I know he loves his stuff. He loves his Metal Gear. So there we go. Yeah, Dan likes it.
Yes.
Check it out, Dan, because I think you'll all like it. And obviously, I think there are different difficulty settings on this as well, Dan. So I think you'll like. Obviously, he's going to play it on hard mode. Like he's a proper gangster, man. So Dan, I think that's a Dan. this game for what it is.
Well, you did
So
say, considering the fact that he's from Sherwood, he's a descendant of one of the Merry Men, right?
and there's voice acting. You can hear the Germans. They're like Halt and like Wolfenstein. You can hear them speaking German, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you can hear them move and talk in their language. But it's fun. It's fun game. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Jen?
Definitely good. I it looks great. I'm definitely gonna give this one a try, and of course, being how it looks more like a spiritual sequel to Commando with better functionality, and I go for it.
It's probably one of the best top-down shooters I've ever played, to be blunt. I'll be honest with you. I was surprised EA made it of all people, but yeah, there we go.
I mean, Trip Hawkins, despite the fact that no matter what happened to the company later on, it has Trip Hawkins DNA, EA, and it's and somewhere deep down inside of its soul, it still makes some good games somewhere somehow.
EA gave up on supporting these sort of war games with the Desert Strike games on the Mega Drive because they said because there was a company called High Score Productions that was under the arm of EA who did Jungle Strike. They did Desert Strike afterwards, but they used them to make sports games because it made more money for them. Sadly, that's what happened. So they cut down a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And they moved their resources. That's where the money.
Sports games really do make a lot of cash, though. You gotta admit that.
And that's how EA became the biggest publisher in the world, by getting all the money from sports games and acquiring studios like Westwood and whatever to join them, and expanded into a huge video game company, multi-million. I mean, it's weird how EA are bigger than Sega these days, but it is. You never think it, but they are, sadly, because of the decisions they made, the business decisions they made. But this, look, in terms of all their games, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of modern EA, but this was like, the Medal of Honor series when they came out were coveted and loved on the PlayStation. This is the sole Medal of Honor I recommend you should play on the Advance and give it a go. Give it a go. Yeah. What about you? Right. What about you? You've been sitting there like pensive, looking at this, wondering, does it have any RPG elements, any stories? There is a story you can, in this game, and you can read it if you want because you're into that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool. But anyway, what do you think?
I'm looking at the game, so because I'm more familiar with the Medal of Honor, the first-person shooter one, the first-person, third-person shooter one, yeah. And this is a different take, honestly. And with this, and looking at the gameplay now, I appreciate this kind of format better compared to the first-person, third-person shooter, because it's kind of jarring with all of the camera angles. That being said, watching the gameplay right now with the footage, I'm not sure why is the camera is also so jittery. Would have been nice if it's just it's just stationary.
So what he's trying to do is, if you're looking at the direction he's going in, the camera pans in that direction so you can see ahead. That's why it seems jittery. So because he's moving around, the camera will pan in the direction the character's looking in. That's what it is.
Yeah, but is it really that necessary? I mean, like this, that's fine. But everywhere you go, the camera moves along, which, I mean, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yes, it does, because if it doesn't move with you, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to be centered right in the middle? Like, it's meant to be, you want to look ahead. So obviously, he's going to throw a grenade if he's got any common sense, which I think this idiot does. Yeah, he's got it. He's going to throw a grenade. Ooh. Well done. Put them all up. So there we go. So it's a lot of fun, this game.
Although with that kind of nitpick, I do appreciate with the subtle animations they did with some of the movements. I mean, he threw that grenade, like and the other and then the Axis soldiers just flew right out of the jeep on that alley. So yeah.
Can you see where the character is on the screen? So when he's looking down, he becomes at the end of that screen. If he's pointing up, you see more of the screen that is going ahead, and that's the way the camera should pan, so you can see ahead. Otherwise, you just get killed off screen, mate. You know what I mean? You'll get killed by something off screen. Like, you want to see if there's a guard there. That's how the game works. Trust me, it works this way. It makes sense.
I'm just imagining if it's just stationary, and but that being said, you can still pan the camera angles freely.
Yeah.
not
Yes.
automatically. I mean, I
Can
mean,
do.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
It's
yeah. I
possible.
mean, like you said. I mean, like you said, if I try it, maybe. But I'm just imagining
Give it a go.
maybe they tried it stationary, but they went for this one.
It makes sense doing this, man. Just give the game a go. It's a stupid nitpick. Just play the game, man. It's better than Bucky.
Well, again, it's just a nitpick of mine because again, JRPG here, with the 16-bit JRPGs, it's all the camera angle is always stationary.
Yeah, but no, it's an action game. It's supposed to point you in the direction you want to go to. So don't nitpick, man. Just play the game. It's a good game, very good game. I'm glad you liked it anyway. I know you liked it. That's what you. It's hard for you to say because I just cussed your game for being shit. But we need to
No,
understand. Yeah,
I like
this is a good.
I like the game, but I'm trying to poke holes on it.
No, yeah, exactly. Because I cussed your game for being shit. That's why. Anyway, but yeah, it's better than Bucky O'Hare, better than Commando, better than bloody Mercs as well. All right, this is the way you want to play. It was a top-down shooter, and there were a number of top-down shooters that were great that I could mention as well. On Mega Drive hardware, like True Lies, that's a top-down shooter that a lot of people don't mention. And you also got Demolition Man. Well, Demolition Man side-scrolling, but run and gun, and you've got top-down mode as well. So there are another couple of cool IP shooters that I just want to throw out there as cool top-down shooters, which are probably the top-down shoot elements have probably inspired this gameplay as well. So if you like this kind of gameplay, yeah, give True Lies and Demolition Man a go. It's got side-scrolling, but you also have top-down levels as well. You shoot the hell out of people. But I think this is a lot more
I
refined.
always
and
wondered if they ever release a Medal of Honor, but with the perspective, the perspective of the British soldiers. It's always the GIs. It's always the American soldiers being portrayed as. But you don't see was there any video game out there that showed the French, the French army, the Royal British Army, the Turks, whatever? I don't know.
I mean, the Americans
just curiosity?
It's like these Americans think they won World War II for us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that, man. They thought they did all the work here. We did a lot of work in Europe. All they did was drop the bomb, and that was it. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
I mean, you guys were just there.
Yeah.
Getting killed, yeah. And then Stalin made that deal with Hitler, so he wouldn't attack each other. So then we had to seek a new ally. Then, we had to get Churchill had to get in bed with that Roosevelt fellow, and Truman got involved, and Truman dropped the bomb. And Stalin was a bitch; he was a traitor anyway. Anyway, what happened after World War II. What happened. But the Americans didn't win everything. You're right. We should have more British themed things because it's different, and it's good to see it from a British perspective. I think everyone's
because with D-Day, it's not just the American soldiers landing in Normandy.
Absolutely,
There are,
yeah.
I mean, the British and the French did something too during D-Day.
Yeah, but I think the problem is America run Hollywood, isn't it? So they want to be the heroes.
Yeah, but then again, Hollywood is a cesspool of filth and degeneracy now. So people are turning eastwards. They're watching C dramas, K dramas, Bollywood movies. So the tide is shifting.
Better stories in Bollywood, I'd say these days now. Before it was just like boring crap. But Bollywood is definitely more refined. I'll definitely say that now. And
I highly recommend go watch RRR from Bollywood. It's excellent. Yeah. Anyway,
that's a mad film.
All right.
That's a good one.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one because we're approaching the 3-hour mark now.
All right, fine.
Miss
Eileen.
Miss I's turn.
Hi everyone, welcome to Timeless Gamers. This is Enslin Porter, and I am gonna talk about my favorite, or I should say, picks for the run and gun games on tonight's episode. So I have 3 games that I have chosen. One is something that I have only played recently because it's a modern release, and the other 2 are releases for the Nintendo Entertainment System. So my first choice is Blazing Crow, because this one was just released last 2019. So it's a modern retro, it's a modern run and gun, but I should have said retro because this is in pixel art style. So this was developed by Joy Masher and published by the Arcade Crew. It is available on Windows, Switch, PS4, and the Xbox One. It is set in a post-apocalyptic world after a war that has almost made the humans extinct. This new world is ruled by robots, and they are set to kill all the remaining humans that they could find. So you play as either Mavra, one of the remaining rebels, and there's Doyle, a robot that has been reprogrammed to rebel against the robot army. So this game has 4 levels. You start with a tutorial with a couple of moves, and it's easy to get used to them after quite some time, after a short while, I would say. I'm not sure with other run and guns, but in this one you could stay put and attack in different directions. So instead of running around and aiming, you can just stand still and aim in multi directions. You can also roll on the ground. There are different difficulties available. And I would say the pros I found in this game is you can pick up different power-ups and you could collect them. I think you have 4 slots for the power-ups and you could choose between them, unlike other run and guns where you pick up a power-up and that's the one that you're gonna use, essentially. And you lost your other power-up. So before I go to the cons, just a little disclaimer, I enjoy run and guns only casually. I would say it would be nice if you could get an extra life upon earning a certain number of points. I hope you could at least get a life for maybe every 10,000 points or something. There is a 1-up on the, I think, 3rd level, but that was it. And it was actually hard to get onto. You have to risk and be dragged by a flying enemy. So the enemy could drop you to that 2nd platform, but you have to kill that enemy as well. There's also, again, this is subjective, an annoying game mechanic that I found really not helping to the game. So you have to attack certain enemies crouched down. And maybe I remember in Contra where you have to crouch to attack certain turrets. In this game, there is a character that looks like a horrible dog. And you can only hit them when you crouch down. But of course, they're moving targets, so you have to be nimble enough to crouch down at the right moment. But then what happens is, instead of crouching down, your character is running around aiming downwards, so you're essentially running towards the enemy and not really hitting them. You end up getting killed. And another is, there's not really too much, but there are lots of stuff happening on screen, but not enough to be bullet hell. But actually, I think this isn't something seasoned run and gun players would find unchallenging, because some say that it is not as difficult as Contra. So there's that. My next game is Frontline, which was released in 1982 on the arcade by Taito. There are other versions released on ColecoVision, PC 8801, Sharp X1, Atari 2600, MSX, FM7, and of course the family computer. You play as a soldier and your aim is to go to the enemy base, or the end part of the level. It's actually just one level. You really have to go to the top most part of the screen. Remember, this was an arcade initially, so that's why it's designed like that. The play is simple. You just aim, well, walk and gun. He's not really running, but you just walk upwards and shoot at your enemies. So you can fire bullets and throw grenades in multiple directions. And there's also a part where you can ride tanks. There are 2 types of tanks. There is a small tank armed with a machine gun, but it is quite weak. And then there is a bigger tank with a cannon, and it can be hit twice. So if you get hit once, it would show like a part that is destroyed. You get out of it, then you re-enter, then you have 2 more lives again. 2 extra hits before you get killed. So the game is actually quite entertaining despite its age. And to know, there is also an extra life given when you earn 10,000 and 15,000 points, but none is rewarded after that. So this game has vertically scrolling levels, and you can enter and exit tanks, and you will not die when occupying a tank that is damaged. You cannot pause the game because I played this on family computer back then as a kid. You cannot pause this game. Again, remember this was originally an arcade game, and because it is arcade, it is quite short. I guess you can finish the first play of the level in roughly maybe 15 minutes or less. So other aspects are there are green enemies. Enemies are actually colored green, and in some parts they are camouflaged in the grass. So you might get surprised. Where did that come from? The game is also quite challenging. Once you finish that first play of the level, it restarts again, and the difficulty increases. So that makes the replayability of the game, because once you finish the level, it gets harder and harder when you beat the game. So just think about it in terms of arcade. It could be quite addicting. So you keep on inserting coins and imagine the profit of the arcade owner. Your target is a barricaded tank that you can only attack on foot. A part of the level where you are in a tank, you just need to get out of it and throw a grenade to the barricaded tank. And once you've ended your enemy in that tank, one of the soldiers will come down and show their surrendering white flag. That's when you know you've beat the game, and then it restarts in a harder level. For my third game, this is actually just a special mention, and I'm talking about this for the sake of nostalgia. This is something I enjoyed back then as a kid on the family computer that I haven't advanced much, but I do plan to replay it and maybe beat the game. So what I'm talking about is the game Jackal, which was released in 1986 by Konami on the arcade. It was also released on the NES, Famicom Disk System, ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, IBM PC, mobile phone, and XBLA. So I had to think twice about talking about this game because we are talking about run and guns, but you aren't actually running on the tank, are you? People say run and gun involves you as a player being able to control the character's movement, as opposed to the shoot 'em up where it is auto-scrolling. So in this game, you go through enemy bases as an armed jeep and rescue prisoners of war. There are 6 levels to complete, and it is action-packed, accompanied by upbeat music that gets you going. The game is quite simple. Well, the gameplay is simple, but you have to be skilled at it as well. So you have to shoot enemies with your machine gun, which is the con part of it is it's only firing in one direction, the machine gun bullets. You do have a grenade or rocket launcher as well, which is useful because you could fire those or throw those in any direction. You're basically armed with a grenade on top of your cannon or machine gun, but you can also get the rocket when you get to rescue the glowing prisoner of war. The rocket though cannot get past any barriers, but with the grenade you could throw it over some trees or walls and whatnot. And those are my 3 picks for run and gun games for tonight's episode. I hope you enjoyed them or will enjoy them if you decide to try them. Back to the Timeless Gamers panel.
As always, excellent choices from Miss Eileen. I know Blazing Chrome came out, relatively recently, and I honestly, first time I saw that, I knew right off the bat it was a tribute to Contra and the run and gun games of yore. Frontline, I'm gonna share Viraj's opinion on this. Compared to Commando, that one felt a little slow, but when you got into it, when the tactical aspect of it does entertain. Yeah. And of course, Jackal, I'll have to admit, Jackal, I never really got into, so I have no opinion on it. But kudos to Miss Eileen for her choice. And seeing the footage of it, I might give it a try sometime in the future. You never know. I'm always looking to expand my views on what's available and what's there. So excellent choices all around, Miss Eileen.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you, Viraj?
Yeah, I concur what you're saying. Obviously, Blazing Chrome is the one that stands out, and it's an outstanding game on the Switch. Obviously, I'll play I mentioned modern consoles, but I play these on the Switch because I think that's the best modern system for retro gaming. That's maybe I'm my own bias, but I've got Cuphead, and I've also got Blazing Chrome. Now, Cuphead is an innovatory step for run and guns, and it uses a 1940s art style. It's a good piece of art. This one plays homage to the Contra style, but it does its own thing, and it plays amazingly. It's like the next evolution to if Konami were going to continue with the Contra games. Blazing Chrome is cheap. You can buy it, play it, because it's an outstanding game for newer systems. So definitely a solid gold game there. As for the other two games, I think Taito did a good job with
Frontline. Yeah.
Frontline. It's obviously a slower game, but hey, look, it's a game of its time. And if you look at Jackal again, goodness me, a game of its time as well. Still, probably a lot of fun in that as well. He likes my choice of Aliens 3. Of course he would. Of course he would, being a Mega Driver. But yeah, Alien 3 is a good one. But all three solid picks for her. And there are other games out there. I mean, that's her choice. Nostalgia played into Jackal for her, and that was what it was. In the same way that BBC Microplayer game, which I deliberately forget, is what Dan liked, and that stupid Green Rabbit game is what Joe RPG wanted. He liked that game, but it's his game. He loved it. But it's nostalgia. There we go.
We're not even saying anything.
I think the truth is here. I thought we were going to pick some proper games here. I'll be some Mickey Mouse shit, man. I'll be honest with you.
Again, Viraj
All my
prefers a
choices have been
different
good,
green.
man.
Viraj prefers a different Green Rabbit, Jazz
Oh,
Jack Rabbit. So there you go.
Jack Rabbit, all right. With Miss Ice picks, Blazing Chrome, aesthetic wise, reminded me of Contra Hardcore, definitely. With Frontline, even back in the early 90s, it always baffles me why he holds his gun like this.
Oh yeah, well,
So he walks around, he holds his gun like this, like on the side. Very ineffective way to hold a gun. Now, I mean, check it out. When he holds his gun, it's weird.
You've definitely been in the military holding guns, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I know. I mean, some people do it like this, but not like this.
well, but that's gangster style. That's
dangerous. That's dangerous.
yeah, exactly. The recoil on that would just smash your face. Simple.
And then with Jackal, very weird controls, Jackal. Because sometimes so while you're on your Jeep, so your machine gun tends to point where your Jeep's supposed to be, kind of. So if I'm moving my Jeep upwards, so I'm shooting upward, and then when I move my Jeep on a slant, it's the machine gun still fires upwards. And then rarely in occasions when I go like this, then the machine gun still goes upwards. I'm like, and then sometimes the machine gun will just go sideways as well. It's kind of weird, given I'm like, how am I am I controlling the machine gun separately from the Jeep or what? So
Well,
anyway,
let's presume that you've got a gunner and you're just driving the Jeep. But
just drive.
Jomar makes a very good point. If a game like Jackal has a driver with a gun but doesn't use it and just run over enemies, is that considered run and gun, or is it plain hit and run game? That makes it Death Race 2000, Jomar. Death Race 2000. For those of you who haven't seen the
I
film,
didn't even consider Jackal as a run and gun. A drive-by shooting, yes.
Okay, that's fine. It'll work. It'll work. All right, and so that's Miss Eileen's choices. I'd say pretty good choices. About the only one that I might kind of disagree with is Frontline, because I'm not even sure the guy is running. It looks like he's having epilepsy while he's moving upwards. But anyway, continue.
A very racist run.
Yeah.
A very
Yes,
racist
Raj.
Frontline.
All right, excellent. So I think we're good with Miss Eileen's choices. Did you put up your second choice,
I'll
John?
do my last. I'll do my last game, and then we will do Sir Dan's last game, because Sir Dan's last game, I'm
Mm.
pretty sure you guys have an opinion on that game as well. So
Oh,
on
shit.
my yeah, so my second game before we head
It's
with
bloody good,
your
yeah. Make sure it's
Dan's
a good
last
thing, yeah.
game.
Make sure it's
Sorry,
a good
what?
one. Make sure it's a good game, yeah. 'Cause if
Make
you-
sure it's a good
Oh,
game.
it's
Let's
crazy,
see.
It's good to me.
Okay, there you go. Let's see what Joe brings up. Okay.
Okay, so my second game is Cannon Spike for the
Cannon
Sega
Spike.
Dreamcast.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, so very weird. I mean, it's Kami's game supposedly,
Mm.
and not a lot of. I mean, not a lot of other
Oh.
video game characters will
I know
get
why
their
you
own
like
game.
this game now. I know why you
Oh
like this.
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
No.
Okay,
No.
to be honest, I only played this game for the obvious reasons. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was
Yeah.
just curious. So I was
You have
so
to
I
tell
so
them.
when I heard that Kami has his own game, and I'm like, oh shit, Kami has his own game, right? And
It's
so
good.
and then I tried looking for this game in eBay, and it costs way too much. It's so expensive
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some
yeah.
reason in eBay. Even if you get a Japanese version or the Western version, it still costs too much. If you get the complete the
Was it
complete
Dreamcast
Dreamcast
exclusive?
box.
Was it Dreamcast exclusive?
No, yeah, it's a Dreamcast exclusive, and so I just downloaded the shit and played it on my Dreamcast, and yeah, so obviously I played Kami first. I'm just curious on what I'll see. All right, there's not much of a story here, really, because when you pick, so there are a lot of characters to choose from. Each of them have their own style of shooting, and they have their own melee attacks, and they have their own specials. So right off the bat, they'll just show like a cutscene of what's happening, but
Hmm.
there's not much context that the game will give you. Like there's not much dialogue. Once the cutscenes are over, all you have to do is just fight the enemies off. Each stage I believe there's like two or three areas that you should finish before you can face the area boss. It's a two-player game. It's also a two-player game if you want to. Mega Man is also a playable character, a hidden character actually. So you got Nash and Kami from Street Fighter, and Mega Man as well, as a hidden character as well. I think Arthur is here as well. But I didn't really. But I only played Kami and Mega Man. Oh, and Nash. The other characters here are all original, created characters. So I haven't really gotten the chance to play all of them just to see how they fare. Um, so yep. So you have the choice of keeping your distance by shooting the enemies here. This is one of those games that you'll see Kami shooting a gun and not just doing her cannon drill, her cannon spike moves, because she can do that. She can do those moves here if she wants to, as you can see in the footage. So yeah, 3D rendered graphics altogether. It's typical, very arcadey feel because because it's on a Dreamcast platform.
Here,
The difficult
important question from Dan: does it have twin stick controls, or is
the
it
twin
just
stick
Hmm.
oh the twin stick controls. I have my stick down there.
Mm-mm.
Well, I'm playing that's your and
Oh dear.
no. I mean, yeah.
He
So,
keeps the
so you
Leo
can
card
so
off.
you can,
There's
so
no
you
need
can
for-
control the sticks.
Taking
Yes,
Leo card off, I understand, yeah, but there's no need for you to use twin stick controls in this game.
you can control the sticks. Yes.
Fine. Okay.
To answer Sir Dan's question, yes. The twin stick controls are there.
Okay.
And if you're going to if you're going by with the footage here, it's just one area.
Mhm.
So you don't go around. So you don't go around exploring the entire town or the city. You're just stuck in one area, and then the enemies will just keep coming at you until you finish the whole bit, until you move on to the next area. So as you can see, Kami's ass is in full view. Of course, Capcom knew what they were doing.
Well,
Um,
it was Psycho who made the game, and Psycho make a lot of
oh,
schmucks
they have.
for
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, yes.
and Capcom
Yeah, won't be.
published it. You know, it's a multi-directional shooter. Up to 2 players you can play, which is interesting.
Mhm.
You can play characters like Cammy. You can play as Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. You can play as Baby Bonnie Hood, Charlie. You can play Mega Man in this. Pretty cool,
Yeah,
right?
Baby Bonnyhood is here as well. I forgot. Yeah, Baby Bonnyhood is here. Yeah.
You can play as Simone, based on Kurosawa from the Alien vs Predator Capcom arcade game, and Shiba Sintara, based on Siva from Three Wonders, which is a game I've not played yet. So you have like a number of characters that you can play as other than Cammy, which is nice. And you've got 2-player support.
Yeah,
It's currently
Cam's
on
ass is
eBay.
nice.
Well, on eBay, I see the price. I can see the price. It's £650. Buy it now. Buy it now. Price
Holy
650.
shit, right?
Currently, there's an auction going on. 600,
That's
450 is where
that's
the
even
biggest-
expensive. That's more expensive now than the last time I checked.
Yeah, so it's rare. I don't know. We'll see. I'll put watch because I'll see if the deal. Typically, when I watch an item on eBay,
You're paying for
deals-
Kami's ass, guys. Come on, she's worth it.
Dude, it's going to be cheaper
£150.
to just hire an escort and have her cosplay. Come on.
Well, just get your Dreamcast modded and put GDMU in a Dreamcast. All right, just do just mod your Dreamcast with its thing. But yeah, okay. I like this game. I like,
Dreamcast shirt.
yeah, I like this
But
game.
it's
It's
red.
beautiful. I think it's very well.
Yeah.
It's very well done. It's fast. It's fun. It's quirky, but I think it's unique. You can use twin stick, arena-based twin stick shooter, Smash TV Robotron with Cammy Arse. I'm sold. So yeah, Dan
Yeah,
likes it. I
actually,
like it.
that
Kami's
was
ass
the
is
first
there,
thing.
yeah.
That was the first thing that jumped into my mind. Dan, Robotron. This definitely gives off Robotron vibes. So
Okay.
yeah, I give it a try too.
Well done. Good choice.
And it's a very difficult game to play with one hand. Just to be, just sharing. All
I
right.
can imagine.
Yes.
I guess we can just close it off with Dan's final set of games. Then, all right, let's do that.
All right. Let's go with Sir Dan's last pick.
Hello again, Timeless Gamer crew. So we're going to move on to Treasure, okay? Now, anyone who's a run and gun man knows who Treasure are. So they're a absolutely fantastic 1993 game, Gunstar Heroes. Now, Gunstar Heroes is a spectacular game. This game is something that will knock your socks off. And one of the reasons I love Gunstar Heroes so much is because it's one of the few games that you can actually get Nintendo fanboys to admit they'd want it on their system because it's got a bit of a Nintendo kind of colourful flamboyance to it. A lot of Sega games have, to be fair. It's just hasn't got the reputation for it. But Gunstar Heroes has that colourful, spectacular, a kaleidoscope approach to its presentation. But the presentation is just the presentation. It's fantastic as it is. But what makes Gunstar Heroes so fantastic is just so chocker, full of creativity. The entire game is, it's every single step you take is something wildly fantastic, and it even integrates that in your weapon system. Your weapon system, you can combine different types of weapons to give you different types of effects, and it's a much more creative approach than it is just your normal pick up a power up and boom, you got your weapon. So, Treasure are kind of the unsung heroes. I feel of the 90s. Everybody talks about Ray, and Ray weren't as good as Treasure. Okay, let's be honest now. Ray made some nice, a lot of some spectacular games again visually in that. But when it actually comes down to stuff like level design and challenge design, Treasure just blew them out the water, man. Blew them out the water. You know, you look at games like Ikaruga, and Ikaruga's known as a puzzle shoot 'em up, but it's wild. It's the thinking behind it. The creative thinking is just superb, and Gunstar Heroes that embodies it as well. And the other game, of course, on the Sega Mega Drive, which Treasure made so explosive and took a creative approach to things, was 1995's Alien Soldier. Alien Soldier is pretty much again, this is a boss rush game. This is a boss rush game. You have small sections of popcorn enemies, but those small sections are really just there to replenish your energy. The actual game itself is basically 25 odds boss fights, and boy, are they spectacular. Oh my god, is this game spectacular. It is a very awkward game to get into because it's got a very unique control scheme, and it also can get a bit repetitive. That's always been my criticism in it, that some of the boss patterns feel quite samey, especially in the earlier stages. When you get past like your 10th boss, then it starts to change up a lot more, so it's a lot more fun. But the earlier stages, it does feel a bit samey. But once you master the game, you can smash them 10 bosses in no time anyway, so it's not a problem. But the game itself, when you look at how spectacular this game is, it moves so fast and so dynamic. It really, to me, this feels like a mid to late 90s arcade machine. It feels like a 32-bit game in some ways. When you look at the speed it runs at and how explosive everything is, it only slows down when you unleash a special attack, and it's in kind of keeping with that as well. Contra 3 does it on the Super Nintendo. When you press a smart one on Contra 3, the entire screen slows down, but because it's an explosion, it kind of adds to that. It gives it that feel of whoa, and it's not running in bullet time constantly like a lot of Super Nintendo's game unfortunately do. But that's what happens with Alien Soldier. When you unleash your power attack, everything like slows down for bullet time for like 2 or 3 seconds, and then you get back to the action. So it's very forgivable, and in some ways it kind of adds to it. The action itself is just spectacular. Like I say, it's incredibly unique. The way it uses its power-up system, the way that you're limited to a small confined space. You're not going to be jumping around all kinds of platforms. You're not going to be ducking and diving as much. You have to. It's about basically moving from one side of the screen to another at the right time, unleashing the right attacks and blocking the enemy fire to replenish your health. It's a strange system. It takes some getting your head around, that's for sure. And it took me quite a while to get into it. But once you're into it, it is a blitzing game. It is absolutely blitzing. So I would recommend you take these Treasure games out because I think both of these games capture that fantastic sweet spot of the evolution from 16-bit to 32-bit. Because I just think when we got to 32-bit, people took things a bit too far, and some games become a bit boring and not quite as exciting because of it. A lot of bullet hell shooters came out because the screen could handle so much, and bullet hell shooters are great, but they're more, they're a more steady, thought orientated type of experience rather than an intense, exciting one. And these two games they got all. You can feel the later 32-bit era, all the technology and the bonuses from that era bleeding into these. Kind of. They're not quite there with it, but you can feel the foundation of it there, and you can feel all the craft leading up to that, all the 8-bit and 16-bit era perfection of pure arcade excitement in both as well. So check them out, because as games, they are both timeless.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Correct. Dan is spot on every single point of his over there. I actually streamed Gunstar Heroes during my streaming days way back when, yeah, when I was much younger, and it-
A t-shirt. I've got a t-shirt of Alien Soldier.
Green screen.
oh, you're fading in and out, Viraj. We can't
Yeah,
see it.
Alien Soldier.
Alien Soldier. There you go. And yeah,
Yeah.
I streamed
Big
Gunstar
fan.
Heroes. Tons of fun. Lots of the smooth as butter to go BTS at gameplay, and yeah, with it still had that combination of different kinds of weapons. If you combine two different weapons, it fired a different way. I think they removed that in Gunstar Superheroes on the Game Boy Advance, but they kind of made it so that you had access to all the weapons all the time right from the beginning. So, uh, excellent choice. Excellent
You
choice.
had two characters. You had Red and Blue, and they
Red
had
and blue, yes.
that was it. So Gunstar Future Heroes, it was called in Europe, which is the correct name.
Yeah, some backwater place,
That
because in Japan and the US, it's always been known as Gunstar
That game is-
Superheroes. Anyway,
Gunstar Future Heroes at a reasonable price on the advance. It's actually a good sequel for Gunstar Heroes on the Mega Drive. It's a worthy sequel. I think a lot of people prefer the Mega Drive more because of the still craft that went into it. But I think Future Heroes is a good game that Treasure did. And again, it speaks for itself. Sadly, we didn't have a video of Alien Soldier playing when Dan was talking about it. It was all Gunstar Heroes. But Alien Soldier is like pushing the 16-bit console. It was actually, if you had the Japanese game, I had both, and also have the ROM hack, which had 6-button control support. So Dan did make a point about the controls being a bit weird, but they've actually gone back and put a hack so you can play 6-button, and it's easier to get through, control the game. If you like that sort of thing, those who've played the game for years and are used to the 3-button might as well stick with it. This game took 2 years to develop, and it was single-handedly programmed by one guy for Treasure. Back then, they made games in short development teams. There's actually a history of this particular game, Alien Soldier, on YouTube. You can watch it by Daniel Ibbotson, and it's an inspirational story as to what he did and how it took him so long to hand make this game. Because it took ages because the graphics were outstanding. It was pushing this hardware to the limits. When you turn on the game, it said speed shock, sound shock, visual shock. Now is the heart to start the X6800 Heart on Fire for Mega Driver's custom. And it's basically trying to say Mega Drivers are people who want the hardcore experience. So people like Dan, myself, would love this game, and it is just intense. Alien Soldier. I used to say to my friends, "Okay, you talk about this game, but are you man enough to play Alien Soldier?" Because it really was there. You have to go for it, and it's like Dan says, once you master it, you understand the boss battles and the patterns. You'll get around it. But I absolutely love Alien Soldier. It's one of my top 10 games on the Mega Drive. I mean, it was so good they put it on the Mega Drive Mini too. They had to, and they put Gunstar Heroes on the Mega Drive Mini when they made the tribute. And obviously, for those of us in the Asia region who got the Mega Drive Mini from Asia, that it was actually in that first Mega Drive Mini as well. Alien Soldier, it's had 2 releases on the Mini, so it's just that good a game, and it is a very, very nicely polished game, marking the end, in my opinion, of the 16-bit era. For Sega and Treasure, and it's just such a great game. The music as well. The music in these games are just outstanding. So another point I just want to raise about Gunstar Heroes both Gunstar Heroes and Alien Soldier, treasure gems for treasure, and treasures for sure. And he's right about when he compared Rare and Treasure. Everyone goes on about Rareware being this and that, but I think Treasure is an unsung hero of that era, and they made some quality titles for the Mega Drive hardware. I just want to throw out Dynamite Heady, and I want to also throw out McDonald's Treasureland Adventure, which is a hidden treasure game on the Mega Drive, and that's actually a really good game. There we go.
If I'm going to describe Gunstar Heroes, it's like, what if John Woo directed a video game?
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, that would work as a description. Yes.
Why did I say that? Because not a lot of run and gun games where you can see your characters doing a lot of shooting poses. Like what we saw here in Gunstar Heroes. One for example that I saw. So I think this is Red. So when he jumped up in the air, and he did this. So he jumped up like a Superman pose like this, but holding his guns like this.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That is a John Woo pose, definitely. Yeah.
That was a John Woo pose.
Yes. Mhm.
Like,
Dan's asked me a question.
that-
Alien 3 or Alien Soldier, which would you pick? Tough choice. I say, well, it depends on my mood. Both are solid, but I might just defer to Jurassic Park Rampage Edition. There's so many great running guns on the Mega Drive. We haven't even scratched the surface of the Mega Drive hardware. This system will never die. It's just got so much on it. And even Xenocrisis, I forgot to even mention that. That's a brand new run and gun game by BitMap Bureau. It's recently been ported to the Super Nintendo. Another great game. We just don't have enough time in the show to just go through some of these other run and gun games which have been out for a while, or newer ones, which just pay homage to games like Smash TV, and that's what Xenocrisis does. But yeah, I think out of Alien 3 and Alien Soldier, obviously Alien Soldier is the more polished game and a much more action game, which involves less thinking. Alien 3 definitely needs more challenge. It is much more of a challenge than Alien Soldier, I would say. But once you've mastered both, you'd be very good at it. But both, the Mega Drive for me is the system for running guns because it had such a nice variety of them, which we haven't even scratched the surface on, I'm afraid to say.
with Sir JDM's point here, run and gun with blast processing, and he's right. I mean, if you're going to look at Gunstar Heroes Plus and Alien 3, and then Contra Hardcore, it's like the way they move so fast. I mean, things are happening so fast, and like there's this distinct aesthetic of if you're going to compare it with the Super Nintendo, I don't know. It's just the blast processing. I mean, because when we saw Gunstar Heroes and when we saw Alien Hardcore, it's like I'm watching a 60 frame rate per second movement on the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
Versus with the frame rate that I'm seeing with the Super Nintendo. Granted, Super Nintendo can also pull off 60 frames per second depending on the game, but with Gunstar Heroes and Alien 3 and games like Alien Hardcore, it's just so distinct that it's a Mega Drive game. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
I can imagine these games running on a Super Nintendo and how they would look like.
It's. I mean, graphically, the SNES had a bigger color palette, so it might get more vibrant colors that they might want to use. It depends on the artist's direction if they're going to port a game to the Super Nintendo. But again, how they play is dependent on how good the programmer is and utilizing the SNES hardware. Now, you can talk about. Let's talk about Sunset Riders for a moment. That's a SNES game and a Mega Drive game. The Mega Drive game was criticized for not being true to the arcade, and they took it in a different direction. But I like it. The SNES game was more true to the arcade, but it was censored, it's just the way the game was. But I just like the way it works on the Mega Drive, strangely enough, although most people will prefer the Super Nintendo version because it's true to the arcade. Another game, like I mentioned Alien 3, there's a lot of people prefer the SNES version of Alien 3 over the Mega Drive version. The Mega Drive version, if you want a challenge and some speed and just get straight into it, that's it. So it's entirely subjective.
Those people who are waiting for Sunset Riders to be mentioned, that's your obligatory shout out right there.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a given, guys. It's just Sunset Riders. It's
Fine.
a given. It's a given.
Another
Yeah.
one I want to mention as well is
Come on.
Mega Turrican and Super Turrican. We mentioned the Turrican series. European developers, Factor 5 Entertainment, did a great job with both. And I prefer, I think the census is Mega Turrican is the better game, even though Super Turrican utilizes that Mode 7 graphics on the bosses and stuff. Graphically, yeah, you got all those graphics, but you're kind of missing a level with the Super Nintendo one. I kind of felt it was rushed. There's a director's cut that they've created since then, which enhances it, and both same with the Mega Drive one. But the Mega Drive game is, even with that, is still the more fuller experience. It just plays better. Chris Hulsbeck did the soundtrack for both. I think it sounds better on the Mega Drive. I think the FM synth lends itself better to run and gun games than the sound chip that the SNES has. And they did Super Turrican 2 on the Super Nintendo as well, and that's okay. But Mega Turrican is another great. If you want, the Turrican games are great run and gun games for the European side of things. Obviously, you got the Japanese created Contra. In Europe, we created the Turrican series, so you have that. And again, great sound. Everyone, again, with FM Synth and the developers, they made really good sound. One of the criticisms Mega Drive has, the sound is a bit goofy. No. And these games are great. So yeah, I'd just like to sort of sum up that the Mega Drive did have some awesome run and guns. I think, like Sedan said, in the 32-bit era, run and guns sort of became less liked because of the direction that they went in. And when they returned to their base roots to a 2D format with Game Boy Advance and going forward, I think you had some great sort of homages like Contra 4 and some other ones going forward. And now with the Switch, you've got Blazing Chrome and Cuphead and games like that. So it's making a bit of a resurgence. Sorry, Xenocrisis is another one that's also available on modern systems, but also it's available on the Genesis, Mega Drive hardware, and SNES now as a you can buy it from the developer BitMap Bureau, and that's another one I wanted to try out. Xenocrisis, I mentioned that too. 2019 by BitMap Bureau. That's definitely one to give a go as well. If you like games like Smash TV, and that's again another run and gun that was great on the arcades. And there's obviously Chaos Engine. That's another one. Chaos Engine is another one out there by BitMap the BitMap brothers. Anything they touch was gold. So we could go on and on. I could talk for ages about run and guns. 3 hours isn't done justice, but I think I'll just leave it there with what I have to say. Some really good choices, apart from 2, in my opinion. You know who you are. Really ranted about it in the chat. We could have picked better games. Sorry to everyone watching who had to see those crappy games. But there are better run and guns, which I've just mentioned. Sadly, some people don't have any class, don't know what this show's about. We want to recommend good games, not crap ones. Bucky O'Hare and that stupid piece of shit. What is this? Nostalgia, man.
If you guys prefer getting your favorite running gun games to be mentioned, just wait for BitMap Books to come out with their own book about run and gun games. It's all in there. Should be coming sometime June or July of this year, 2024. And that's the show, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for staying this long. We'll just do our quick who am I kidding? Let's just do our shameless plugs. Let's go with Sir Joel. Sir Joel, where can they find you?
All right. You can normally find me streaming randomly on twitch.tv and on kick.com under the Banyagang Native banner. Just check out the search bar at the very top of the page. Type in Banyagang Native and you'll find me streaming a variety of games, a lot of retro, a lot of modern. Recently, it's been driving games like Test Drive Unlimited 2 and a game called Elex. It's an action RPG. And recently, it's just been coordinating with Retromancy Official Incorporated, making sure that the company takes off the ground, coordinates with everybody nationwide, and everybody has a good time with whatever comes across in terms of geek culture and geek commerce. So that is what I've been busy with recently. And thank you very much to BitMap Books for being our partner. Thank you very much to Streamyard for making this entire podcast possible. Back to you, Joe.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Joel. How about Sir Viraj, where they can find you?
You can find me on this channel, obviously. You find me on the Sega Genesis group on Facebook. You can find me on the Sega Mega Masters channel on YouTube. And you can find me here in London, where I trade at the London Gaming Market. Next one's June 30th. And I trade in Nintendo handheld software because it's fun. So that's basically it. Done. Back to you.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Viraj. And let's hear it for StreamYard as well. Start your own online live streams, webinars, podcasts, online classes, and virtual presentations with StreamYard. By using StreamYard's user-friendly interface, you can also do simultaneous multi-streaming if you have accounts to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and other platforms. If live streaming is not your style, video and audio recordings are also available, especially with those who have variable and inconsistent internet connections. The finished output will still come out as clear and well articulated, exactly as you originally intended. You can also customize the appearance of your presentation, like green screen effects, facial touch-ups to smoothen out those facial blemishes, multiple cameras for multiple guests joining in the discussion, your own wallpaper on the background, adding your own logo as a watermark, sharing videos from your own computer or other website for added visual aids with or without audio, uploading your own background music if you wish to set the mood when talking, and lots more. Before you can enjoy all of the wonderful full features of StreamYard, you can start with a 14-day free trial by using our link. not only that you are supporting the Timeless Gamer Show, but you can see it for yourself how easy it is using Streamyard. All right, thank you for that, Streamyard. And of course, we got this one going on. Back to the Culture Part 2 is coming back. It's coming back on June 8th and June 9th, both Saturday and Sunday this weekend, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Same place at the Promenade Mall, basement 2 of Green Hills. Right there, adjacent to Collective Base. So for those people who attended the first Back to the Culture, thank you all so much. Very successful mini video game retro event that we had there. As you can see, the pictures are those were the pictures that we took from that event. We got very nice traffic, and hopefully the second one this coming June 8th and June 9th. Hopefully we'll see you there if you weren't able to make it the first time around. So see you there. June 8th, June 9th, the Promenade Mall, basement 2 Green Hills, right next to Collective Base. That's Back to the Culture by Retromancy Incorporated. Yay! And yep, so in behalf of Sir Dan, Sir JDM, Miss I, and Sir Ray, who did our thumbnails, that's the show. Thank you all so much. And once again, our games and our bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain
Timeless. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. That's the show. See you guys again next time. See you in the chats. Bye.